Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. You hearing me? Oh, he's asking me to talk.
test with everyone. Sid, is that you, the 646 number?
Yeah, it is. Hey, Chris.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry guys, I'm just gonna try that one more time. Hey, can I get the room to quiet down for 1 second, folks? For 1 second, please. Thank you. Sorry, Sid, can you talk for me for 1 minute?
No problem. Chris, can you hear me?
I hear you. Okay, and you can hear me okay, correct?
Yep. Yep.
All right, and Jessica, you're still good, correct?
I am.
All right, excellent, folks. I'm going to turn this towards the board. We'll be starting shortly. If you hear the audio drop out, that's because I did that intentionally, and we will bring it back up at the start of the meeting.
Sounds good. Thanks.
I'm like, there I am. Almost trying to get in here. Oh, 7, 8. I know my hair. I like it's so long. But Alex is here this weekend. Yeah, so that's why you guys heard in person. That like lives in Florida now. If you miss him, he goes like another month. I know. Go down to Boca and get my hair cut. He's super intelligent. Computer's slow.
Word docs has been
Yeah.
tricky.
Okay. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We're ready when you are. Yeah. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting of February 25th, 2026. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Natalie, would you please reiterate our executive session motions?
Sure. We met in executive session to discuss the particular employment of a particular person and to discuss the record of particular students.
Thank you. Please note that Trustee Sid Burke is joining us remotely this evening due to work travel. I hope everyone had a relaxing winter break and enjoyed the snow-filled extension of our break. I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to the district's facilities team for preparing our schools for a safe opening this morning, and to each of our villages' DPW crews for clearing our streets after the blizzard. Thank you as well to the entire Pelham community for caring for your properties and assisting neighbors during and after the storm. A few notable business items tonight. We have a student recognition this evening. We congratulate Pelham Memorial High School senior Emily Walk, who has been named a top 300 scholar in the prestigious Regeneron Science Talent Search. Out of approximately 2,600 applicants nationwide, this is an extraordinary and highly competitive achievement. Congratulations to Emily and to our entire science research program. I had the opportunity to attend the Senior Research Symposium a few weeks ago, And it's clear that this program is producing young scientists who seek out and secure opportunities to conduct original research alongside established scientists. The program's dedicated faculty have helped shape these students into award-winning researchers while still in high school. It is truly incredible and a prime example of excellence in the Pelham Public Schools. We are also joined by Alex Wolf and Jessica Schechten from NSPRA, who will provide an overview of the results from the district's Scope Communication Survey. This is the second iteration of the survey, and I commend Alex and the district for their commitment to continuous improvement in school communications. Conducting this survey reflects leading practice in public education, as evidenced by its recognition as both a case study and an award-winning effort, as well as the improvements recognized by the Pelham community, another example of excellence in Pelham Public Schools. Dr. Champ will also present an overview of the proposed 2026-2027 budget. The budget reflects the Pelham community's values when it comes to education. Despite increasing financial pressures, including rising costs in healthcare, special education, and transportation, the district has embraced the board's direction to preserve the robust programming that forms the foundation of our educational excellence, while continuing to manage expenses, including staffing levels, and developing a tax cap compliant budget. Make no mistake, this is accomplished only through careful planning, difficult decisions, and doing as much as possible with limited resources. The budget must be both sustainable and forward-looking, particularly as we prepare to borrow for the bond projects approved last May, projects that cannot come soon enough, as we're already experiencing infrastructure failures, including 2 boilers, one at the high school and one at Prospect Hill. I thank the community in advance for taking the time to understand what is at stake during the budget process. While the district has kept this proposed budget within the tax cap, it has done so by continuing to do more with less, something that cannot continue indefinitely without impacting program. Many peer districts have already exceeded or plan to exceed the tax cap. Before the winter break, we also held several committee meetings, including bond steering. Our protocol is to hold the committee meeting, provide a debrief at the following board meeting, and include it in our board wrap-up. So here's a brief update, and I'll ask Jim to elaborate more later. Okay. At Prospect Hill and Colonial, designs have been submitted to SED for permitting, right? Okay. The architects anticipate receiving permits and beginning the bidding process in March, with construction intended to begin this summer at both schools. Over the winter break, site testing occurred at the middle and high school campus. At Siwanoy, geotechnical testing also took place over the break, with advance notice provided to the community and in accordance with the local regulations regarding drilling. The committee also took an informal poll on whether to continue assessing hybrid construction at Siwanoy. Hybrid construction would involve some work occurring on site, such as the foundation, with certain components constructed off-site and then delivered to the school. The quality, materials, and overall construction timeline would remain the same, but reducing on-site construction time would lessen local disruption. Triton has identified a vendor to conduct a feasibility study on the hybrid approach, and early indications suggest it is feasible for the Siwanoy project. We also have 6 policies up for third reading and 1 policy up for first reading, all related to students with disabilities. As a reminder, these are necessary updates and will not materially change families' experience with the special education program in Pelham. Finally, I would like to address the proposed picture house and surrounding area development with respect to school district involvement. The Village of Pelham invited the district to a working session last spring, which Trustee Burke and Vice President Marrero attended ahead of the village's RFQ submission. The village offered the district the opportunity to participate in the RFQ process to explore whether a potential project could help address certain facilities needs. Ultimately, the district did not participate in the RFQ, nor did we review any developer submissions. The board had questions about the potential project and the process by which property would be obtained, questions very similar to those that have been raised by the broader community. At the time, we were also focused squarely on ensuring the community had the information it needed to vote on the bond projects and the budget. We remain aligned with the district's priorities at that time, and the village's redevelopment plan was not among those priorities. We wish the Picture House great success in its plans, and we know how important it is to the school community and the entire Pelham community. With respect to development more broadly, Trustee Will Treves recently spoke at a Village of Pelham meeting on our behalf, sharing some of the findings of our demographic study, which show enrollment increases, particularly at Colonial School and the high school. He emphasized the importance of coordination with the school district on any development so that we can appropriately plan for enrollment impacts and facilities needs. And that concludes my remarks, so we can move to the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to take 3.1 and 3.2 as a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
This is the approval of minutes from January 21st and February 11th. Any comments or questions on those minutes? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, so those motions are approved. Now,
Great.
move on to student
Yes,
recognition.
so thank you. I'm going to move over to the podium for the student recognition.
Great.
So we are extremely proud and excited tonight to honor one of our Pelham Memorial High School students for an incredible accomplishment. Student through our science research program, and Jackie already gave us a great introduction to that. I'm going to invite Mr. Llewellyn to join me up at the podium. I'm going to do the presentation, but always nice to have a school principal here with us. So tonight we are here to honor our newest Regeneron Science Talent Search honoree, selected in the top 300 scholars nationally. And our new honoree for this year is Emily Wallach. Emily's project is title is called Testing a Domain-Specific Impact of English Language Cognitive Test Bias in Spanish Speakers in the United States. And I'm going to ask her to come up in a minute and kind of give us the elevator speech of what that is, maybe a chance to answer some questions. But before I do that, just so that everyone knows, the Regeneron Science Research Competition is the nation's oldest and most prestigious math and science competition. And as I said, it focuses on the top 300 high school scholars, seniors. The Regeneron Science Talent Search provides students a national stage on which to present their research and celebrates the hard work and discoveries of these young scientists who are bringing a fresh perspective to significant global challenges. Scholars are chosen based on their outstanding research, leadership skills, community involvement, commitment to academics, creativity in asking scientific questions, and exceptional promise as STEM leaders. In addition to science research, I'm going to share some of Emily's background. She was also a Rotary Scholar of the Month recently as well because of her impressive resume. So in addition to science research, I just want you to know a little bit bigger picture about her so you can understand what an incredibly dedicated, talented, and hardworking, bright young woman Emily is. Emily shows that I'm going to let her describe her thing. Emily's work, in addition to her work in science research, she's extremely accomplished and well-rounded as a student. She's president of the Pelham Together Youth Council, founder and president of the Grassroots Grocery Club for Anti-Hunger and Food Recovery, is also a Pelham Memorial High School peer leader, a reporter for the Pelham Examiner, and a member of the Students for Refugees Club, Habitat for Humanity, the Animal Welfare Club, the Chemistry Club, the Ocean Conservation Club, the Women in STEM Club, and the Women's Empowerment Club, as well as participating in Columbia University's Brainstorm Neuroscience Teen Program. She also is a varsity player on top of that. I don't know how she has time to do that, but it's amazing. To me, this shows just the well-roundedness, the empathy, the care, the service-oriented person that Emily is. And I think when you hear about her research, you can see all that interwoven in what probably motivated her to pursue this area of study. I'm going to give a little bit of my description, and Emily, I'm going to invite you to come up and join us. We got a little certificate for you, and then I'm going to ask you to give us your version of it. So you can come on up. In layman's terms, see if I get this right, evidence shows that English language bias exists in many cognitive tests that are used to diagnose cognitive impairments, which may hinder the accurate diagnosis of non-English speakers. Emily's research employed a domain-specific investigation using exploratory factor analysis to investigate the presence of this bias in a population of Spanish and English speakers in the United States in order to examine how latent structures and performance patterns differ by language. These findings indicated the likelihood of English language bias in certain cognitive tests and support the validation of these tests rather than direct translation from English to accurately diagnose cognitive impairment of the aging population. I'd have to read that about 3 more times to fully grasp it. So I'm going to let Emily come up and talk, give us her elevator speech. And Emily, I just want to share this certificate of appreciation and excellence on behalf of the Board of Education. You're welcome.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me here today and for continuing to support the science research program. So my research was essentially about dementia, which is a very devastating neurodegenerative disease that's characterized by a loss of cognitive functions. I really became interested in this field of study after my own grandmother was diagnosed with dementia because she's one of the millions of people suffering from this disease worldwide, and prevalence is only expected to increase in upcoming decades. So my study looked at cognitive tests, which are a really important way to detect cognitive impairment in people, which can guide their treatment plans in order to intervene before dementia takes over. So I looked at a population of English and Spanish speakers in the United States, and I compared how they were being assessed, and I found some evidence of a potential English language bias in these tests, which basically means that the tests are perhaps not diagnosing Spanish speakers as well as English speakers because these tests may not be structurally equivalent when they are created in English and translated into other languages. So as was said, my study supports the careful validation of these tests rather than direct translations to ensure equitable access to healthcare for speakers of all languages, not just English speakers. So again, thank you very much for having me. It's a huge honor to be here.
Picture. Just real quick, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
You need to go to a microphone.
Ms. Cohen.
Your research sounds, first of all, super fascinating, very relevant, very important.
Can you go to a microphone?
I guess I'll repeat that for the microphone. Your research sounds super fascinating and extremely relevant and timely for what's occurring now. And as you said, dementia is only increasing, and we're only going to see that. I'm curious to know what in your findings and your recommendations, what I guess is the assumption. Is there a certain age level understanding of English language assumption that you found in your research? And then did you go as far as coming up with maybe recommendations for changes to these tests?
Yeah, definitely. So I think what my research really focused on was that early prevention. So while there isn't a specific age that you can suggest, because dementia tends to come on in different ages for different people, it's really important that these people are being tested as soon as they can even before they feel like they have the cognitive impairment coming on. It's more of a preventative measure. The sooner you get tested, the more likely it is that these medical professionals will pick up if there is some sort of impairment. And as for recommendations, my study really supports the careful validation of these tests rather than just accepting a direct translation from English into other languages, because more often than not, they are not structurally equivalent. And it means that when these non-English speakers are being tested, they are not being as accurately tested as the English speakers, because the tests were created, developed, administered in English by English-speaking scientists to English-speaking populations. So it's hard to just transfer that over to other languages without this careful validation. So my study really supports and promotes that.
So careful, follow-up question. Careful validation then means what exactly? Like, does it mean like when scientists in whatever native language need to validate the questions to make sure that the English translation is the same, is equivalent?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so basically instead of just like a word for word equivalent, they have to make sure that they're picking up on certain nuances, like cultural terms that may not be familiar, words that may have a different meaning when they're directly translated, and you need to find a suitable alternative rather than just a direct word for word translation.
So interesting.
I have.
Thank you.
Oh, you go ahead.
Emily, who is your mentor for this research, and how did you find them?
So my research was conducted at Columbia University's Irving Medical Center through a program called the Brainstorm Program, which I became a part of in my sophomore year of high school, and I applied to be mentored, and I was selected as one of the people who could have this sort of mentorship, which I then created this project around and submitted to the Science Talent Search. So my mentor's name was Dr. Victoria Levitt. She's a neuropsychologist at Columbia. She was definitely incredibly helpful and inspirational throughout this process, and just a really great mentor to have. And I actually worked with her for 2 summers, so this was my project for the second year that I ended up submitting to the Science Talent Search.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have a two-part question. Well, you answered my first one around what inspired you to do this research. And so just to share, my grandmother was also diagnosed with dementia, and so was my mother-in-law. So it's just a really meaningful and relevant research project that you looked into. So thank you for doing this on behalf of many of families that, navigate that. But I guess my question is two-part. One, what was it like for you? Because you went into it with one idea, I guess, right, as research happens, and then you came out with like a finding, or did you go into it trying to uncover a bias, around that? So that's my first question around just discovering this through your research. And, there's a history of like medical biases from male to female, like really kind of not thinking about things holistically. And so what brought you to say, I'm going to do English speaking, non-English speaking? And so how did you, kind of determine that methodology and that process?
Yeah, so for the first part of that question, I really came in with an interest in the environmental modifiable side of things. There's the genetic side, which are the things that one can't control about themselves, but then there's a lot of modifiable ways that you can kind of reduce your susceptibility, and it's not necessarily inevitable that you'll end up with dementia just because you have a certain genetic predisposition. So that was really the mindset I had when I went into the lab. And then I guess this kind of also answers your second part of the question. I also found myself really getting inspired by the work going on around me, especially with my mentor. So my mentor specializes actually in multiple sclerosis, and she created an app that would test for multiple sclerosis, and she had been administering it to populations around the world, noticing this kind of discrepancy when she would administer it to certain populations that spoke different languages all over the world. And this is a discrepancy that has been noted widely in literature, that these English speakers are tending to perform better on these tests even when you control for certain sociodemographic factors. So through discussion, we figured out a way to apply this kind of idea, which is something that I had taken a real interest in, to the data set that I did have access to, which was a population of English and Spanish-speaking Americans.
Thank you. That's really amazing.
Sorry. I guess I'd love to know what the next steps are for you for your research.
So this is definitely a topic that I'm super interested in and would love to continue as I leave college, go off to university. I'm definitely interested in this field of neuropsychology and cognitive science. If I could have next steps for this research, I would love to look at more languages, look at more countries, with the idea that these results are generalizable to more populations than just Spanish speakers in the U.S., and this trend likely exists for a lot of other populations in the world.
Well, I'll be following you.
Thank you.
Do you know where you're heading off for college?
I don't know yet.
Okay, keep us posted.
I will. Thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic.
Okay. We can move to 4.2, so the scope survey results presentation.
Yes, and while Alex comes up to the microphone. Yeah, as the board is aware, we had an update from Alex on the communications work that's been going on in the communications department, his department of one, for the last couple of years. And that was a precursor to the administration of the scope survey. As Jackie said, this is our second time having administered it. So it gave us a good pulse check, good benchmark from where we were 2.5 years ago to where we stand today as a result of the strategic efforts that have come out of the communications audit and the areas that we specifically been focusing on. So we've gotten the results, and we're really pleased tonight to have Jessica Schechten from NSPRA here, who's, I think, and she'll introduce herself, but she basically was, I think, our lead data analyst, and spent some time with Alex and I going through those, the results, and really digging deep so we could understand clearly what's in there. And we think you're going to be pretty proud of what we hear tonight. So without any ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alex and to Jessica.
Thank you, Dr. Champ, and thank you to everyone here. I think the board is aware, but this is a process that really started back in 2023 with the communications audit, of which the scope survey was a part of. Not the only piece, but it was a part of, sort of taking a look at our communications program as a whole, assessing how we were doing, what are some areas of strength, what are some areas that we could look to sort of refine our practices and move the needle a little bit. And as part of that process, we developed a strategic communications plan, which we have been trying extremely hard to follow and implement the 8 recommendations that came out of our audit. And as part of that process, we're here tonight to sort of reflect on our re-administration of the scope survey, which is really a checkpoint of how we're doing, a reframing or regrounding of where we are. Is the work that we're doing still reflecting what our stakeholders expect of us and want of us? And where do we go? How do we move forward? And what are the areas that we want to focus on as we sort of move into the future? For the bulk of tonight's presentation, I'm going to let Jessica speak to the data. And then I'll sort of add some color along the way to sort of talk about the different areas that we have sort of tried to implement strategies that I think you'll see reflected in that data. So just by way of introduction, Jessica Schechten serves as the NSPRA, which is the National School Public Relations Association's communications research specialist. She plays a key role in looking at the data associated with the audits. Prior to joining on with NSPRA, as in her current role, she was an audit consultant, and she had previous to that a 25-year career in school communications with the Capital Region BOCES right here in New York State. So she's with our national organization now, but has a ton of familiarity with New York State. And I was lucky enough to see her present at a couple of NSPRA seminars way back in the day, and just feel really good that we have someone who has such a good grasp on all of this working alongside of us. She also holds an accreditation in public relations and is a certified project management professional. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica to jump in.
Thank you, Alex. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight, and it really is a pleasure to present this data. I'm going to share my screen now. I have a slide deck to go through. So hopefully now you are seeing everything. So as Alex said, this is the second time that Pelham has administered the SCOPE survey to its community. The SCOPE survey gathers stakeholder feedback about how the district communicates, including opinions about stakeholders' preferences for communication and how well they're informed and how well they believe communication from the district is working. Much of the survey uses 5-point rating scales for the questions, asking respondents to indicate their level of agreement with specific statements from one extreme to the other. For example, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Because these questions are standardized nationwide, the results allow Pelham to compare its communication performance to national average scores across multiple areas. And that will be part of what I go over tonight. The 2025 version of the survey was administered from November 3rd through December 2nd, and it received a total of 739 responses from parents, employees, and community members. The slide here gives a breakdown of each one of those populations. A separate similar survey was administered to high school students, and that received 624 responses, which was a significant increase from 2023. The SCOPE survey uses an industry standard formula to calculate target percentage rates to ensure reliable results. That's what the margin of error data you see here is, and as it shows, Pelham exceeded the margin of error targets for parents, employees, and students, and came really, really close. I would say it met the margin of error target also for community members. So as a result, the data you see tonight is highly reliable and does represent a strong cross-section of stakeholder opinions.
Yeah, and one piece that I just want to add on the participation is I was really, really happy to see that we were able to meet those benchmarks. It took a lot of work. Many of the folks who are in this room tonight were part of that work, so I really appreciate the help in getting there. I also want to just point out quickly that with our community number, that's actually a 50% increase over the last time that we administered the survey, which I think is pretty notable because it certainly is our most difficult demographic to reach. The folks that really are tuning in by choice. And so that I think that was important that we were able to make that progress. And it's hard to say exactly what led to that, but I know that one of the things we did this time around is we did send a community-wide postcard out to everybody, which I think really helped move the needle a little bit there. So I was really pleased to see that number increase. Oh, I think she is frozen. Okay.
Percentage points more
Jessica, you froze
Now
for a second. So if you just don't mind just restarting on this perception slide.
Sure. The district improved in terms of overall perception of the district across all stakeholder groups, anywhere between 13 and 20 percentage points higher now rate the district as above average or excellent compared to 2023. And at the same time, what we see, those rating it below average declined. So this indicates that overall sentiment towards the district is absolutely trending positively.
Yeah, and I think we should all be very proud of this data point. I think it's really validating to see those numbers move in that direction that they have. As part of the audit and as part of our strategic communications plan, there are some data-driven goals and benchmarks that we're trying to hit along the way. So as we go through tonight's presentation, I'm going to try and point out when we come to those goals and where we've met them. So in this particular data set, our goal was to increase overall perception of the district by 5 percentage points or higher across all of our audiences. So I think you see there that we've been able to accomplish that and then some. And while I would like to stand up here and tell you that it was all because of our communications work, that really would not be accurate. I think that when we look at overall perception of a school district, we're looking at everything that's happening. So communications plays a part, but what's happening in the classroom plays a part. What's happening at the administrative level plays a part. Everything that everyone's role in this district is going to play a part in that number, and I think that's something that we should all be really, really proud of.
The next thing, this question is something new that we've brought to the scope survey. So this was not on your 2023 survey. This question seeks to find a Net Promoter Score, or NPS, for the district. NPS is a fairly widely used metric to measure customer satisfaction and loyalty to a brand, product, or service. And it's based on a single question. We asked participants, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend the district? And the respondents are grouped into 3 categories based on the score they give. Either promoters, those are your loyal enthusiasts who are likely to recommend the district and speak about it and contribute to its growth and popularity. Passives tend to be satisfied but unenthusiastic residents. And then detractors are the unhappy residents or even naysayers who have the potential to damage a brand's reputation through negative word of mouth. Calculating NPS is really just a process of subtracting the percentage of respondents who are categorized as detractors from the percentage of promoters. And so because of that, score can range from negative 100 all the way to positive 100. And this is where I always really like to pause when I am speaking to education audiences, because I know in education, a score, that's somewhere around 0 is definitely never thought to be good. But in the context of an NPS, anything that is positive means that you have more promoters than detractors. And so that is seen as good. And a score of 50 or higher is what's considered excellent. So again, very different from the way we typically grade things in K-12 education. So with that said, Pelham's overall score among all stakeholders is a positive 38, which means 50% of respondents are promoters, while only 12% are detractors. So a positive score like this indicates strong loyalty and overall satisfaction. And over to the side on this slide, you see the scores for each stakeholder audience, with parents and community members hovering right around that overall score, and sentiment among employees being especially positive. So this is really, in my opinion, and even what I see among a lot of schools, these are really strong scores. I can think of only 2 districts that have ever kind of hit that 50 mark. So even though 38 would not be good for any one of your high schoolers. This is really a tremendous score. So I think this is telling the district an awful lot about the sentiment that is out there in the community. And then one of the other questions we ask is for survey participants to tell us the first words that come to mind when they think of Pelham schools. Across both years, words like community, caring, good, and excellence stand out. And in 2025, we saw inclusive, small being more prominent, reflecting the district's strong community-centered identity. In terms of satisfaction with district communication, we also see that this improved across all groups from 2023. The percentage rating communication above average or excellent increased significantly among parents, employees, and community members. And again, dissatisfaction declined, especially among parents and community members.
Yeah, so this is another area where we had a goal set around this. Again, it was to increase those numbers by 5% percentage points across all stakeholders. So again, we see some success there. And then sort of as I think about this, I think it's important to reflect on what are the things that we did along the way that may have influenced this number. And a couple of them that sort of come to mind, I think. One is the launching of Parent Square and consolidating our communications platforms into one unified system. I think that was huge in this area. But then I think it's how do we use Parent Square? How do we use our communications to establish a regular cadence so folks know when to expect things, know where to find things, and can go back and look at those if they need a refresher. How do we make our communications more readable? We've really tried hard to streamline what we're putting out there, to use bullet points where necessary, to use pictures and infographics where necessary, and to make sure that the most important information is getting right in that opening paragraph. We know that people don't have a lot of time, but we want to make sure that folks are getting what they need, and then they can sort of continue on and get more information as they go along. And then I think the other important piece that I really think we need to talk about is prioritizing staff as a communications audience. So I think we've made a really concerted effort to do that, recognizing that they're on the front lines. If they're not informed with the decisions that are being made and the things that are happening on the ground, they have no ability to serve as the ambassadors to the community that we need them to be. And so our job as an administration is to equip them with the information that they need to be successful. We have doubled and tripled down on that, I would say, over the past couple of years, because we knew that it could pay some really serious dividends. And I'm very pleased to see that is reflected in the data.
This is another question that was not on the 2023 survey, but we've since introduced, and it asks respondents to indicate the value they have for different information sources from the district. Basically, they rate each one on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the most valuable. And across all audiences, email is the most valued communication channel, with more than 80% of stakeholders rating it either 4 or 5 stars. The district website and the Board of Education wrap-ups are also highly valued. Social media and word of mouth play a role, but to a lesser extent, an email really kind of takes the cake here. One thing, it's not in my overview now, but obviously there's a much larger data set that I have shared with Alex. And I just do recall, because I thought it might be, this audience might be interested, but when we look at the individual audiences, staff in particular find higher value in the Board of Education wrap-ups. So I believe, to what Alex just said on the previous slide, that's a good source for staff, and they do look to it for being informed of the Board of Education's work.
Yeah, and so one of the pieces of this, that we've tried to think strategically about is aligning the messaging tool with the audience, right? So it's not in tonight's presentation, but in sort of the larger data set that I will share with the board. It talks about what each audience's communications preferences are. Do people want email? Do they want text message? Do they want to be on social media? And I think looking comprehensively at that and situationally as well, it dives in pretty deeply. So we're able to then think about those things as we're rolling out information and making sure that we're using the appropriate channels. So I think this is really good information for us to know, especially as we sort of look at where we're putting our efforts in. And I know Ms. DeAngelis can tell you that we spend a lot of time on those board wrap-ups, so it is great to hear that they are a valuable tool for folks. So this is super good information for us to have as we move forward and sort of think about where do we want to put our efforts.
This question in 2025 actually was just answered by respondents who indicated that social media is a source that they frequently use for information about the district. So it was a subset of those who took the survey. Among those individuals, community Facebook pages and, of course, the district's Facebook page continue to be influential, particularly among parents, and the district's Instagram page follow that. Use of X and YouTube, we see a bit of decline from 2023.
So I'll just say it. I was totally shocked to learn that Pelham likes to go on Facebook. What I found interesting in this data, in all seriousness, was that we see a modest uptick in folks who are using our district Facebook page as a source of information, as well as a modest decline in the folks who are saying that they are using the community Facebook pages for information. So I found that interesting, although differences in who the question was asked between the 2 years could be relevant here. But I will also note that if you go back to August of 2024, which is the longest I can go back in sort of the Facebook's analytics tool, since then we've seen a 13% increase in our Facebook followers, which is, I think, relatively significant number. So more people are gravitating toward the page, and then they're getting information from that page.
The survey asked respondents a series of questions about how informed they are in 8 different topical areas about the district. And I'm going to go through the results on the following slides. As you see here, a majority of each audience feel at least moderately informed, if not better, about district successes. There are small gains compared to 2023, especially among parents and employees. And similarly, we see the same kind of modest improvements in how informed stakeholders feel about student achievements. In particular, fewer report that they are slightly or not at all informed. Parents and employees also show slight improvement in how informed they feel about school events. Community responses remain steady, with a small increase in those feeling underinformed. I don't consider this entirely surprising, given that in most school districts, there are significantly more events that are targeted toward families or staff than they are to the larger community. School safety shows significant improvement, particularly among parents and staff. More respondents report feeling very or extremely informed compared to 2023, with double-digit increases across audiences. As is common in most districts, scope data, percentages feeling informed start to decline somewhat as topics become more substantive, such as leader decisions. Pelham's data shows modest improvement among parents, some mixed results among staff. While more feel very or extremely informed, we also see a slight uptick in those feeling underinformed. And we also see slightly higher underinformed responses among community members. I do want to mention here that one limitation really of any survey is that it doesn't always fully explain the why behind the data. When stakeholders report feeling less informed about topics like finances or leadership decisions, the survey alone can't tell us whether that reflects a communication gap or simply that these might be topics that people pay less attention to unless there's a specific region to engage. So, you might see interest increase when there's a proposed change, a vote coming up, a budget vote, or some sort of major issue. So while these results point to areas to watch and possibly strengthen, it's important to interpret them pretty thoughtfully and not automatically assume that it's evidence that communication is ineffective, but rather as insight into where interest and timing and strategy intersect.
Yeah. So I think that, oh, sorry, Jessica, I think I jumped
Yeah,
too
just
soon.
one more. Parents and staff show gains in feeling informed about district goals and plans, and fewer feel under-informed as well. And community responses remain pretty steady. Parents and employees also show significant improvement in terms of how informed they are about district facilities, whereas we see a little bit of the opposite, a slight increase among community members in those feeling under-informed. And finally, finances remain the area where stakeholders feel least informed, which is typical nationwide. Having said that, parents and staff do show improvements compared to 2023 in Pelham. So I would say, and it's what I say to every district that does a scope survey, district finances remains an area of opportunity.
Yeah, and so as I sort of look at all of that data about how informed stakeholders feel, I think we see some interesting trends, right? We've seen that we've made some gains in some areas of the leadership decisions, goals and plans, facilities especially, which makes some sense given the past year of the bond work. So we did a lot of engagement around district facilities, some modest gains in finances, and then some really big gains, I think, in the area of school safety, which makes sense to me because that's been a focus area of the past couple of years. So we've done a lot of work trying to establish ourselves as the trusted source of information in our community and talking a lot about how can we improve our crisis communications. So we've established a crisis communications plan. I think anyone who was watching the evacuation of Siwanoy from the high school a couple weeks ago was able to see that plan in action. We publish an emergency guide at the beginning of every year as a way to make sure that folks feel informed on the front end about how emergencies are going to be handled, what the different protocols are, and how they might expect to receive information. And again, streamlining platforms makes a difference here as well. I will use this morning's example of the 2-hour delay where road conditions got really bad really, really fast. So we, made the decision to go to a 2-hour delay. We were able to get that message out very, very quickly because we weren't fumbling through a couple different platforms. And I think that just, we're working really, really hard to create a culture of trust and transparency. So I think there's some really good information in that data. I also think that it does highlight some areas that we can, look toward for the future. So I think that we should continue our focus on finance and facilities. I think in a couple minutes we'll be talking about the budget, so we'll start some of that work. I think that the one that jumped out to me is informed about school and district successes. So that was an area where we were maybe a little bit more stagnant than we would have liked to see. And so I think that's something where we want to think about, well, how can we move the needle? As I sort of look at the data set as a whole, I think one thing that feels good is I think the areas that we've focused on strategic communications and looking at the bigger picture, we're seeing some pretty good growth. I think as we look at this data set now, that's an area where we can really drill down on these individual topics and see if we can, focus on more specific areas. Specifically, I would say, as we talk about district and school successes, one piece that's been very helpful to me this year is the support that we've been able to have from Southern Westchester BOCES with a part-time PR specialist. So that's been super helpful, and it's just someone who's able to focus on storytelling and really cranking out stories about what's going on in our buildings, and that gives me some capacity to worry about sort of the strategic pieces of that. So I appreciate the board being flexible with that this year. Not going to spoil things for the budget presentation later. I know that there are some tight financial considerations for that, but it has been helpful. Yes, back to Jessica.
Okay, the next series of questions asked for respondents' opinions about areas of quality related to the district's communications. As we see here, a majority of parents and employees agree that they know where to direct questions or concerns. Community agreement is a little lower, but still represents nearly half of respondents. We see just a little bit of change from 2023, but overall things are holding steady. Across all audiences, more respondents agree that communications are easy to understand and fewer disagree compared to 2023. In terms of the accuracy of information, parents show a notable increase in agreement. Employees and community members also trend slightly upward. And significantly more parents and staff now agree that communications are timely. Communication perceptions are largely unchanged in this area. And now to some kind of more substantive, I think, data here. While barely half of staff and parents agreed that communications are open and transparent in 2023, this year agreement approaches 2/3 for both audiences, and far fewer disagree. While agreement among community members did not increase, we do see that disagreement dropped. And kind of a corollary to this, data about the trustworthiness of communications shows improvement similar to what we see with openness and transparency. And this is another typical trend that I see in scope data, that more stakeholders tend to agree that communications are trustworthy than agree that they are open and transparent. So that is the case here with Pelham, but it's not an anomaly. I tend to think that it's a good sign in that your stakeholders trust what they hear from you. There just might be some sentiment out there that, are they hearing everything, or are you holding some things back? And again, that's a tendency I see in districts across the nation. Among parents and staff, at least 3/4 agree that communications is trustworthy, while nearly 2/3 of community members do as well. So these are very strong results.
Yeah, and I think, again, one of our kind of overarching goals, I'll say it a second time, is to be considered the trusted source of information for our community. So what does that mean? It means what we're putting out there is accurate. It means that what we're putting out there is timely. And it means that we're trying to make sure folks feel informed and can turn to us for reliable information. So that's really been a focus for us. I do think we want to make sure that we are, thinking about if folks do have questions and they do have concerns, how can we do a better job of making sure that they feel like they know where to go with those questions and concerns, and making sure that we're closing those feedback loops so that folks can have a better understanding of why we made decisions. And I think a piece of this too is, sometimes we might not have all the answers in real time. And I think sometimes being transparent is telling people that we don't know, but we're finding out, or telling them why we can't necessarily say something in an appropriate time, rather than leave it open and vague. So I think we've tried really hard to do that, and I think that we've done a good job so far. So we'll definitely be looking there as well.
So we also asked, these were questions not asked in 2023. We've added something that asks certain audiences about how much information they receive. And most parents in Pelham feel that they receive the right amount of information from the district and from their child's school. However, we do see that half would like more information from their child's teacher. And once again, this is a trend I tend to see in most districts, that parents cannot get enough information from teachers. And then we see the same thing with employees, that more than 3/4 report receiving the right amount of information from both the district and their supervisor.
So I'll be honest, this is the question that keeps me up at night. It is sort of an openly debated question as to, do we provide too much? Do we provide too little? I think what we see here is that we're kind of hitting the mark for most people. I do want to just say, as we look at that classroom teacher bar, as Jessica pointed out, that is kind of normal to see. I certainly feel that as a parent myself, and my kids in preschool, so that's where it starts. But I do want to just say that our teachers, I think, have done a tremendous job over the past couple of years as we've implemented Parent Square. They're adapting to a new system. They're sending out at the elementary level monthly newsletters. So I don't want anything to get lost in that data point. Our teachers have really worked hard at this, and I think we're seeing gains every single year. And I just want to give them a shout out because they really have done some good work. Catherine.
I have a question about that because this. I have just a quick question about the parent feeling like they need more information from the child's teacher, because this was a Likert scale question, like 1 through 5, not a qualitative question. So we don't know like what more, just more, not anything about what type of more.
That's correct, Jessica, right?
Yes. I will say that, again, for the purposes of this survey, you would have had me on Google Meet for hours if I had gone over all the data. So there is more, and parents were asked some questions about how well informed they are in areas related to their child and their child's learning. So there is some of that data. But this absolutely was just about volume and if you're receiving the right amount. And I think you hit on something because, as Alex said, the scope survey is part of the audits that we do for school districts. And I've, in working on different audits, very often I've come across comments in focus groups that kind of say, well, yeah, I get the right amount of information, but I'm not saying it's the right type of information that I want. So this is only one piece of that. But I will say that, the fact that the majority feel that they're getting the right amount from, especially from sort of the district and those higher levels. When I think about how much overload always comes through in audits, this is an important piece that in terms of routine communications, this data tells me that people do not feel that they're being overwhelmed. So taking this into account, along with some of the other data that Alex does have about those specific topics, can better get at what you're looking at too.
Are you also able to potentially look at it by elementary parents versus, middle school, high school parents in
Yes.
terms of the
Yes.
information?
Yeah,
they're
we'll
receiving?
be looking at, we'll definitely be looking at that, pulling out that data and looking at it there as well. And some of that, I think, we'll probably see what we would expect to see. And that's kind of the natural, I think, progression of things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to Alex's point, this is another one. This doesn't necessarily reflect effort on your teacher's part, but again, expectations of families. And there may be some families that simply will always want more information. Yeah. And I think as you're getting at by saying, let's look at different levels, very often what we see is some parents, particularly sort of as their children get to middle school, struggling with the changes where there's more teachers, but those teachers spend less time with their child compared to elementary school. And the whole cadence of communication from families to teachers is just different. And so very often that's what in terms of this data point in particular, can point out to. parents just adapting to those transitions as kids sort of move through the levels at school. So now I'm going to share a few slides that talk about the benchmark comparisons for your audiences. And in NSPRA, we call this the SCOPE scorecards. To give you a little bit of context before we look at the data, the SCOPE scorecard draws from a handful of the standardized benchmark questions that we use with all districts, more than 140 at this point. And so it enables us to compare how the district does with how other districts have done. These questions are those, as you mentioned, they're on that Likert scale, presented on that 5-point scale. So the district scores for any one of the areas that we'll be looking at is the average of all of the responses or the points that correspond on that Likert scale. And so this is a little data heady, but I do like to point out that when comparing a district's score with a national average score, the meaningful of the difference between the scores depends a lot on the context of the question and its response options. So as an example, let's say there's a 0.5-point difference between the district score in a certain area and the national average. For example, a 3.0 and a 3.5. If those two scores both fall within the same numeric range, as this example does, they're both somewhere in the 3s, they generally reflect the same overall sentiment. On that 5-point scale, a 3 tends to mean moderately informed or average, for instance. But if a score drops into a different range, the meaning can change. For instance, if 3 is moderately informed, 2.5 shifts into slightly informed. So it's still the same 0.5-point difference, but in this case, it would reflect a noticeably different perception. So that's just a couple of different ways to look at the data. And I will also mention the scorecards I'm about to show are again abbreviated for this presentation, and we've really focused in on the comparisons with districts nationwide in the areas that we've looked at so far in the presentation. So, and again, just to orient you, if you notice the first column to the right is the 2023 score for Pelham, followed by the 2025 score. And then on the far right is the national average.
Jessica, I'm just going to interrupt you 1 second just to say that our room setup, this is very, very small. So just as you can go a little bit slower as you talk through the data, that would be super helpful.
Sure. I'll give you a kind of broad look, and then if anybody, again, if it's hard to read, I'm happy to speak more specifically. What I will tell you is this parent scorecard shows that Pelham is on par with or above national averages in nearly all areas. For starters, score differences that are only 0.1 or 0.2 points more or less is really a negligible difference that doesn't indicate any sort of deviation from national average sentiments. And all of the places in which the district is lower, you're not lower by more than 0.1 or 0.2 points. So again, negligible difference. I consider that on par. The questions that are shaded in green are notably strong areas for Pelham, where your scores are 0.3 points or more above the national averages. And in several of these areas, your score also falls into that higher rating range, where again, it means stronger sentiment. And these areas in particular, it's the general perception of the district. The national average score is 3.8. Pelham's score in 2023 was 3.9, and in 2025, it's 4.1. Just a slight tick up, but again, the national average is on the high end of average, whereas Pelham is solidly in above average now. So little more nuance there. The other areas where the district is particularly strong relates to leader decisions and how informed parents are, also with district goals and plans, finances, school safety, and facilities. And again, just to speak to the point about no one's very informed about facilities. The national average score about how informed districts or stakeholder parents are for district finances is 2.4. It's already in that slightly informed range, but again, your score is half a point higher than that. The other areas where the district is particularly strong with parents are the timeliness of communications and the trustworthiness of communications. Moving on to the employees scorecard, Pelham exceeds national averages across the board. And your score was at least half a point higher, so indicating, again, a much stronger positive sentiment than nationally for the overall perception of the district and staff feeling informed about school safety. These were also areas where Pelham's score was in that higher number range, along with how informed employees are about finances, knowing where to direct questions, as well as the accuracy, timeliness, and trustworthiness of communications. And finally, among community members, again, Pelham is on par or above national averages in nearly every area. And in particular, I did want to highlight Pelham's scores, in particular in 2025, related to the overall perception of the district and satisfaction with communications. Those are remarkably higher than national averages. Among community members, general perception of the district solidly falls in that average range. And again, in Pelham, you're more than half a point higher and into that above average range. So very, very strong marks here. And then just quickly, I wanted to touch upon student data and just looking at two of the questions that students answer that are the same as what the other audiences do. And as you will see, student perceptions improved dramatically from 2023. In terms of the overall reputation of their school in the community, which aligns with the overall perception of the district for the other audiences, those rating the school above average increased by more than 25 percentage points. And at the same time, negative ratings dropped to just 4%. Student satisfaction with school communications also improved significantly. Half of your students now rate communication above average, and dissatisfaction dropped to 8%. And I should specify here that this was administered to high school students only. So very, very strong improvements over the 2 years among your high schoolers.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Llewellyn and Dr. Titone, who I think have done really, really good work sort of embracing the spirit of the audit recommendations and trying to bring that to the student level. And I also would like to thank our teachers at the high school who gave up some class time for our students to take this survey. As you saw, I think on slide number 2, we had a humongous jump in participation for the survey, which I think is great, especially as you look at the results. So we're seeing improvement in the results on a much larger sample size, which I think is notable. And so I thank you, and I want to thank the students too for taking this survey, filling it out, taking it seriously, because the data is really, really important. Mr. Llewellyn has been given the full data set, so he'll, I'm sure, be looking over that and seeing, you know, what are some tweaks that can be made and where can we kind of continue to grow. So I just want to say that because I think it's really, really important that we were able to offer that and that we're going to be using that data effectively.
So that concludes the overall of your 2025 survey results. Just to wrap it up, the data here is a very strong indication that Pelham's communication efforts are producing measurable gains in perception, satisfaction, and trust. The improvements are consistent across audiences and in many areas, you know, as we just saw, exceed national benchmarks. So the data really affirms what's working and hopefully clarifies where continued attention can yield similar huge impact as you move forward. So I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I certainly welcome any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. And I just, before we move to questions, I just wanted to, again, thank the board for kind of giving us this opportunity to go down this path. Many districts don't have an opportunity, I think, to look at their communications program in this way. And so I think that, this board and previous boards have really put a high value on developing a communications program. So I just thank you for the opportunity to do this work. And I hope that you see sort of the progress that we're making. And then as far as my next steps, we will be taking a comprehensive look at the full data set and sort of determining what are the next steps to move forward, where do we want to put our focus, and what are some good strategies to continue over the next couple of years. So with that, thank you, and we'll answer any questions that you have.
Hi, Alex. Thank you so much. So I want to congratulate you and Jessica. This has been an amazing shift in our communication strategy. And I really do think we should thank you because you're a department of one and you've done all this. So thank you for doing this. Never an easy task to improve communications. So we've improved on our Net Promoter Score. We've improved on our participation rate. We've had a notable shift we're continuing on our shift from community Facebook groups to the district Facebook group, which is always great. And I know you just mentioned the next steps to take. In terms of return of investments, what would that be? If I could ask Jessica, would that be trying to increase our Net Promoter Score or trying to increase some of these other buckets, whether it's community or student, or what would you suggest in terms of benchmarks of where we should put our, our money on so we could get more return on investments when it comes to communications?
What I would say is that to me, the Net Promoter Score is a reflection of how well you're doing and meeting your stakeholder needs in other areas. So I don't think, I think in terms of return on investment, focusing on the Net Promoter Score is almost probably not the most substantive way to see any growth in that. So I think, again, that is the sort of sum total of sentiment when things are working in every other area. I'll be honest with you. I think that question really is one for Dr. Champ and Alex, because what I will say is that just even looking at your 2023 data, to me, and again, seeing what I typically see, it was already solid and strong. And so in many areas, and seeing this level of growth, I think similar to what it's like for educators, the better you do, the harder it is to continue to see big jumps in improvement, because those last little few that you aren't reaching or whatever, that's always a tougher nut to crack. I think really here, what the data shows is such a solid foundation and such an alignment, it seems, between the priorities that Alex has in your communications function, so closely tied with the rest of the work of the district. And I think, to me, that's what enabled you to see so much growth here in the data in 2 years. So what I would throw back to all of you is, in my opinion, keep your communications and your most substantive efforts there aligned with the most important areas, looking across your whole district. So again, I know facilities has been an important area with the recent bond vote, and you see that paid off. So I honestly think that when your communication really sort of matches where the priorities of the district is, where those decisions are happening, where the investments are being made, if your communications are matched with that and keeping people informed about those high priority areas, I think right off the bat, that's the best alignment that you can hope for. To Alex's point, I think there's areas where there's more room for growth in part because those numbers are lower. So I think one of the things that he mentioned about storytelling about the successes of the district, I think that's a great compliment, and there's probably more room there. But honestly, I think the most important thing is to keep it aligned with the rest of the work of the district, because one of the things that can really start to erode credibility is when everyone's doing things over here, but telling your community, pay attention over here, we're going to tell you something fun, right? When really the important stuff is over here. So the best advice I can give without knowing everything going on in your district is to keep that alignment strong.
Yeah, I think the focus on facilities makes a lot of sense, but also, Alex, like you were saying, a focus on school district success and demonstrating the value of the schools, and also improving the community's understanding of the financials and the budget. I think those two are tied together, and there's room, right? And we saw that there is room there to continue improving upon that.
Yeah, and that's sort of, and I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I think when I kind of reflect on the past couple of years, right, we took a couple of big swings to do some real strategic shifts in our program as a whole, and thinking about that on the macro level, and what is our mindset around communication, and what are the things that we're going to prioritize kind of from the high up view. And I think what we see, the data reflects that some of that is paying off.
Yes.
And now I think because we have that foundation that Jessica just spoke about, now we can start to drill down in some of those
Like topical.
yeah, exactly, like topical issues,
Yeah.
and think about how do we restructure our budget communications plan, or how do we add more color to that? How do we do more storytelling? How do we focus on different areas that you see there, and sort of drill down on those, now that we've been able to sort of shift our thinking a little bit on the big things.
Yep. Great.
So I'm going to say,
All right,
well
well
done.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jessica.
so much, Jessica. And thank you,
Thank you,
Alex. Really
Jessica.
appreciate. Thank you for Alex for all the hard work, and I look forward to continuing with you. The nice thing, and the board probably remembers this, out of the audit, we also followed up by working with NSPRA for a strategic communications plan, and that's exactly what we've been working through these past couple of years, which we can see direct connections to through these results today. So we're going to continue on that path. We're going to look at those other areas that we can continue to move forward and tweak. And I would say one of the biggest things towards Jessica's suggestion about keeping Alex connected with all the different works in the district, and I've said it before, this year Alex has actually been sitting in on our cabinet meetings. It's become an integral part of the cabinet, so he can be thinking about the communication lens through everything from facilities to HR to curriculum to special education and PPS. And be thinking about those pieces, and bring that. And I think that has aligned us already better this year. So these are the results from the fall. I anticipate, we're not planning to do the survey again this year, but I would anticipate we continue to move in that more aligned direction as a result of that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Have a great night.
Good night.
Okay. Before we move to the budget overview, we'll have our student board members give their
It's getting
updates.
kind of late, so
Yeah,
sorry
now
about
it's
that.
getting late for them.
Hi. Oh, is that good? Yep. So Olympics is coming up next week, which is one of the most renowned and exciting high school traditions. Each grade comes together under a designated theme, and it turns into a full day of fun activities, sports, dances, and completely decorating the gym. This year, the freshmen are the frontline freshmen, which is like anything medical, first aid, military, police, like a lot, like really anything. Sophomores are Subway sophomores, which is kind of like a city theme. My grade, the juniors are the junior class carnival, which is the first time in many years that it is an alliteration. So there's been a little bit of backlash against that, but overall it's been fine. The teachers are really happy that we're changing it up. And the seniors are senior Spartans. It is a hyped up event all year and truly brings the school closer together while also bringing out a strong competitive spirit as each grade tries to win it all. Throughout the week, each grade also has designated dress-up days that ties into their themes and earns additional points. Over the past month and a half, each grade has also raised over $1,000 each for feeding Westchester, which goes towards their overall points also. But it's just a good add-on, giving back to the community. Tomorrow night, the high school music department, including the chorus, band, and orchestra, is hosting a music department fundraising concert. It is a great opportunity to show support for the students and the teachers, and to celebrate all of the hard work they put in. Next, in science research, students have been preparing their poster boards for WSF, which is a major science fair competition similar to the STS thing that Emily had won. It is a big accomplishment and something our students worked toward for a long time. If they win this competition, they go to ISEF, which is an even bigger thing. It's a very big competition, so we'll see how that goes. That's on March 14th. And then the week prior to break, the social studies and English departments hosted Humanities Night. Many students presented on a range of topics. For example, 9th graders shared original poems, and 11th grade A+ students presented on different perspectives of Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. Finally, the interim is coming up, meaning Pelham students are halfway through the 3rd quarter. It shows how quickly the school year is moving, but it also serves as a push for students to finish this quarter strong. Thank you.
Thanks, Emerson.
So, in addition to Emerson's statement about Olympics, 2 weeks ago, a Google form was distributed to students to allow them to select their preferred Olympic events, marking the first step in organizing this highly anticipated event. The planning phase we're in now establishes a framework for Olympics and supports the continued success of the event. In addition to that, the senior class talent show took place 2 weeks ago on Friday night and Saturday night and brought together students, families, and staff for 2 enjoyable evenings of entertainment. Performances ranged in style and creativity, highlighting both student talent and a shared sense of humor that resonated with the audience. Beyond the performances, the event fostered a strong sense of class community by encouraging participation, support, and school spirit. Proceeds from the talent show contribute to senior class activities, including prom and other end-of-year events, which are rapidly approaching.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys both. We appreciate you
Yes.
sticking with us tonight. And I think next week, being that it's Olympics, you get the night off from your board duties. So, yes,
Thank
good
you.
luck. Have fun. We can't root for one class over another, but we look forward to hearing about it at your next reports. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Before I go into the budget presentation, I did want to just do a couple quick superintendent's notes, report kind of things, even though we didn't formally have that up there. Couple of, just obviously some big things on the agenda and on minds today. So obviously a lot of snow calls this last week. So first off, kudos to our incredible facilities and grounds staff. I don't think any of us have ever seen anything like what happened on Monday. So I think we had four staff members here, 4 to 5 staff members here, including John Condon. Thankfully, he lives in town. 1 or 2 others of our staff live in town. A couple live in New Rochelle. They were the only ones who could get here. Between the road ban, the road conditions, a lot of our folks live up north, so they had 2 feet of snow in some cases. So the incredible work that they did, they tried their best on Sunday or on Monday. But really, we needed that extra day of Tuesday, like everyone else. So appreciate everyone's patience and flexibility around that. We weren't alone. The whole county, all the island, the whole area was in the same boat. So then I told them, fine, we'll do Tuesday. You get Tuesday, but that school better be ready to open. They said, yes, ma'am, we're going to do it. We want to do it. And they did it. But then Mother Nature played one last little trick on us this morning. So I, again, want to just thank everyone for the flexibility of the last minute change. I think as the board knows, I had just notified them, the administrators, and everyone that we were on for an on-time opening. And then I think within a few minutes of that, I started to get flooded with live time information about conditions rapidly deteriorating, not just up north where we knew it was harder, but even right here in Pelham. So that was the reason for the last minute shift. We are somewhat fortunate in that we don't have buses. My colleagues in the BEPT group, which is Bronxville, Eastchester, Pelham, Tuckahoe, we generally coordinate because geographically we're close, very similar districts. Some of them have buses, some of them don't, and unfortunately, once we made the decision at 6:15, their buses went on the road. So they couldn't stop. They couldn't pause and pivot like we could. So appreciate it. It was much needed. And we had we were able to staff the schools. As far as we know, everyone got here safely, and we had a productive day of school. So I appreciate everyone's patience and flexibility there. And just know those things that go into the snow calls, the timing matters, the amount matters, the type of precipitation matters, and then the ability to staff the schools matter. It can be perfectly ready here, but if we can't get staff here, much like during the pandemic when you had to shut down and we had COVID isolate, all those things, staffing is just as important to the actual education of a school day as the students being here. So we appreciate everyone's understanding on that. Thanks to everyone. We had many people on the road for hours this morning to get here. So also thanks to them for persisting, for being the professionals that they are, and getting up early, getting out on the roads and braving it to get here, out of their dedication to be here. Couple of calendar updates on tonight's agenda, unfortunately related to the snow. This is the bad news, but this is why we plan for 5 snow days. On tonight's agenda, we are making edits to the current school calendar as a result of the 3 snow days that we've had to take. So what that means is instead of a 5-day holiday around Memorial Day, we have to reduce that down to 3, just down to the actual Memorial Day itself off. So I believe that's May 22nd and 23rd are now converting back to normal instructional days for all students and staff. So please plan accordingly. That's why we always encourage people not to make plans on those days because this could happen in any given day. Additionally, because of yesterday needing that one more day, June 24th, I believe it is, originally that was a give back day for the elementaries. That has to come back into an elementary student attendance day. So the elementary being K through 6, middle school is going to have to welcome their 6th graders back in that one half day so far. So fingers crossed, that's it. And hopefully we'll be okay. If needed, we do still have 2 more snow days. So we don't need to panic yet. We don't need forgiveness from the governor yet or from state ed on the 180-day requirement because unlike some large local districts who shall remain unnamed, we do plan for 5 school days. We're thankful that we have the ability to do that. So also we've got the survey. I've got 83 responses on the survey for next year's calendar. So I was reviewing those. In light of the snow days, we didn't have time to get that all assembled and bring that back to you tonight. So that's coming, but some really great feedback. One error, so apologize for this one. I had mistakenly placed Passover on the 21st. That's the first night of Passover. Actually, the 22nd is the correct day if we're going to have one day. So we'll definitely be looking to make that shift. There was a lot of feedback on the length of the holiday break. Some people were advocating strongly for going back to the 2 weeks. Some were saying thank you for not having 2 weeks because we both work and we can't have our kids home for the 2 weeks. So like with anything, there's going to be competing interest around that. Also some questions about could we push spring break to align more with Passover instead of Easter so that it's a little bit later, more separated from February break. Something we'll take a look at. The only way to get us back to have a 2-week break would be bring students back before Labor Day or reduce February break. Those are kind of the 2 variables. So I don't know to what degree that's viable. And again, you get different opinions. You ask 5 people, you're going to get 5 different opinions. But we are looking at those pieces of feedback, and we'll come back with any potential adjustments to you as soon as we're ready with that. One quick accolade to add to what the students shared. We just found out today the 2025, last year's Pelican Yearbook, was selected for Varsity Yearbooks Portfolio Volume 31. This honor is reserved for the very best yearbooks in the country, created, and it was the one that was created in the 24-25 school year. It honors these books for scholastic journalism, innovative design, compelling storytelling, which we're just talking about tonight. So this is one of the highest honors, and I think it's a higher honor than we've ever won yet on our yearbooks. So something I'm incredibly proud of. And the final item that is on the agenda tonight that I'm sad about, this is not something to be celebrating, but we wish it's good for her. You will see on the agenda tonight, and we did notify folks before the break, Ms. Sabia's begrudgingly putting her retirement resignation before the board tonight. She has been an incredible leader to the Pelham community and the Pelham district, being at both the high school for many years as an assistant principal and now leading our middle school through some of the most dynamic and interesting times in education and doing it just with a tremendous leadership and skill. So we're very sad to be accepting that tonight. We're in process of looking at, how we might best fill that position in the future. So information will be coming. Just ask folks to give us a little bit of time on that, as there is some planning around that we're taking some time to do, because we want to do this right. So we just wish Ms. Sabia all the best. We're happy that she's given us the many years that she has, and know that these next few years are well earned and well deserved for her to spend with her family, friends, her health, and we just wish the best for her going forward. And with that, I'm going to transition back up there to go through our budget overview for the night. So I'm going to take the long way and grab one of Valerie's waters. May I? Can I grab one? I'm going to try to go a little bit expedited tonight, given the hour, and we still have the rest of the agenda to get through. But obviously, it's a very important presentation tonight as we launch the start of the budget season. A lot of work has gone into this, as it always does. So thanks to Jim, Ricky, Jackie Vigil, our incredible district treasurer, the entire business office, every one of which has a hand in this, our administrative team, who's been very thoughtful about and strategic about their recommendations and the budgets that they were submitted, and the entire cabinet as well. We've spent a lot of time really talking, trying to be thoughtful and strategic about the budget, understanding a lot of the challenges that are around it, but wanting to deliver to the board something that was within the guidance and parameters that you provided to us. That guidance back in October was to propose a tax cap compliant budget, and that we have delivered upon for you tonight. Maintain to the greatest degree possible the rich program offerings, continue to support our special education students and programs, and as we think about staffing, assess it carefully, thinking with financial sustainability in mind, and again, trying to be strategic in any changes there to maintain those rich programs to the greatest degree possible. We continue to keep our focus and priorities anchored around the strategic plan as we continue our work in personal growth and achievement, belonging and wellness, and certainly facilities and sustainable learning environments. So our work is directly connected to each one of these areas, and as the board knows, our big rocks this year have been a major focus around MTSS, which overlaps between personal growth and achievement and wellness and belonging, as we look to provide individualized supports for all students to reach their personal goals and their personal definition of excellence, provide the supports and enrichment that they need to do that through differentiation, through different opportunities, and through continuing to strengthen our school culture. Also, we've been focusing on AI, which is another way of continuing to, that taps into the personal growth and achievement realm, it's an incredibly important area for equipping our students in for the future, so working to equip our staff so that they can lead that work. And we're excited about a March Superintendent's Conference Day that is going to be largely focused on continuing to deepen our work around AI, both for professional use and for students. Sorry, I need a drink. We've also been continuing with the implementation of our facilities plan, obviously now as we've moved beyond our May vote, so a large amount of work has gone in there. And that's actually helping us in some ways. It does have impacts on our budget that we'll see throughout the budget process, but it also has helped us to make some strategic decisions as we work with our reduced, to manage the different pressures that continue on the budget. So we always too, as part of our strategic, want to keep our values in mind as we move forward. They're very much aligned to those strategic priorities, but we want to make sure our decisions are continuing to think about how do we strengthen community and belonging, wellness and balance, and learning and growth. So again, continuing to anchor in those as we make our decisions. As we sharpen the pencil, we have to continue to further align and focus on these areas so that we know that we're optimizing everything that we have. Within this budget, we are maintaining these things. These are things that we think, when we thought, what are the things that make Pelham special? What is the story of Pelham? It is largely these things. We would not be who we are without the incredibly talented faculty and staff that we have supporting the whole child. And you hear that every time our staff come to our meetings, every time your faculty talk, if you're in the strategic planning, if you're in any of our sessions with our faculty, tri-states, you hear the depth of understanding and commitment that our faculty have to certainly to high achievement, to excellence, but it's excellence in all areas of life and helping each individual child meet their personal definition of excellence. So that is, I think, first and foremost, one of the things that makes Pelham most special. Personalized learning, as is mentioned, whether it's differentiation, whether it's MTSS, whether it's expansion of BOCES opportunities, whether it's special education programs, whatever personalized learning students need, we do an outstanding job of offering those opportunities, programs, and supports so that all children can thrive. As we've talked about, and we'll be talking more about in the coming budget, high-quality special education programs. We've invested deeply there, and our students are benefiting from that. So continuing on that path, that's made us special. That's we're seeing trends of part of why people are coming to Pelham, because they know that we do that well, and we do it right, and kids are getting what they need. So we're proud of that for Pelham. And then we continue to support the robust offerings. And these are things that not every district has, whether it's FLES, IB at the middle school. A school of our size maintaining 4 different languages is a challenge, and it's something that we've been able to do. As the board knows, over 20 AP and college dual credit courses, so we've built those over the last few years. These are the things that are giving our students broader opportunities for them to tap into and really thrive. And you can see some of the other areas that we talk a lot about. Go to our dashboard if you want to see those numbers to really back up these statements here, but the incredible enrollment that we've got in athletics, in clubs, in fine arts, and the level of performance in those is outstanding. We had a sectional game downstairs tonight. I think it was girls basketball. And I heard we're going to County Center. Yes, that's one of the big steps. So go girls, yay. Very exciting. As we talked in our mid-year report, and this goes back to even Dr. Comerford's report, our student assessment outcomes, students by the numbers are doing great through the K 3 through 5 years. They're 80% proficient. We're providing the supports that they need as they move into middle school, high school. We're getting 85 to 90 to 99% of students up to those proficiency and mastery levels on standardized assessments, 100% graduation rate. Through U.S. News and World Report, Pelham Memorial High School is in the top 5% of New York State high schools, and the top 3% nationally. That doesn't just happen. That's all the work that our incredible faculty and our instructional leaders do, and the support of our community. We've achieved this year the AP Platinum designation. We're considered among the top quartile on performance on AP nationally. So we're on the map as leaders in education, and our students are really thriving as a result. And we've talked about, too, our work on Civic Seal of Readiness. We heard tonight from Emily, our most recent STS Science Research Award winner. So we're continuing to see success in all of these areas. We invest and support these programs. We thought it's important to put that on here. One of the things is, as we're talking about budget, we often tend to forget we are currently, and we talk about being one of the lowest spending, highest performing. It's true. We're the 3rd lowest per pupil spending district in the Southern Westchester BOCES group. When we looked at some of the, I think it was through School Meter, was the database. 3rd lowest spending in the BOCES region, Southern Westchester, yet we're one of the highest performing. So I think that's something to incredibly be proud of. And that is, again, part of who Pelham has been. We do a lot with a little. I don't know off the top of my head. That sounds about right. Yeah. So I think it's not a small pool. Yeah. It's a pretty big pool and very diverse districts as well. So so we do a lot with a little bit. So as we start to turn into the budget, these are the typical categories, and we're going to go more deeply into these over the upcoming meetings as we get into the line by line. But the general categories that you're going to see throughout the presentation will be in general support, instruction, transportation, community services. Some of them are large. Instruction obviously is going to be one of your largest. That paired with employee benefits, you're going to be around 75%, somewhere, give or take of that. Debt service is continuing to be, not major, but still, a little bit a slice of the pie. We'll talk more about that over the upcoming meetings, and then interfund transfers as we move funds throughout the different categories. We're not going into the detail of these lines tonight, but we will in the upcoming, the more detailed budget presentation to come. What we wanted to really focus on, as we look at, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. As we look at this budget in particular, we see as we're approaching this, we see several areas of budget that have been really growing. There's been a lot of growth in those areas. We've seen similar areas the last couple of years, but in approaching this budget specifically, we're seeing significant growth in the area of employee salaries, healthcare and benefits, special education and transportation. So when you look at the construct of this budget, when you get to the detail level, you're going to see those are some big areas of growth. And those are areas that are largely outside of our control. We do negotiate the contracts, so we have some bit of control. And as we looked in the prior meeting, there's a kind of a flatter slope to the growth there. We do get teachers retiring and get some breakage on salary as lower salary folks come in. That helps to keep that low, but we also have worked over the last several years to make those collective bargaining agreements reasonable, fair to the employee, but also fair to the district. But things like the healthcare benefits, special education, transportation, those things are largely outside of our control. So what you see here is an estimate of about how much these have added in each categories in the budget that we're now preparing. So when you add these up, the employee, all the categories there, the health benefits, salaries, special education, transportation, plus a little bit of debt, net debt service. So that meaning we had a decrease in state aid, state building aid, but we're going to have an increase in this budget as a result of bans, interest from bans that will be coming on in light of the new building projects. Net increase resulting from that is about $455,000. You put all this together, this is about $2.4 million in increased costs just heading into this budget year. Largely, these are beyond our control if you roll the budget over from where we stand today. So that is a lot of the pressure that we're facing. And we faced similar pressure last year. We made reductions last year to stay within the cap. Similar pressures this year. And you're going to see some reductions to stay within the cap again. But that starts to point to some of the challenges that all districts are facing around managing within the tax cap. Costs are outpacing revenues. When we turn to the revenue categories, these are the general categories you're going to see themes of throughout our budget discussions in the next several meetings. Property taxes, always our biggest area of revenue income. That's just short of 78% of our budget comes from property taxes. About 14% is coming from state and federal aid. We were fortunate to get fully funded on the foundation aid formula. We were probably one of only a third of the districts in the state that got their full funding. Jim and I both monitoring our professional organizations. We're hearing through the grapevines the governor's not likely to have an on-time April budget, which means that we have to use the numbers that we have for budgeting purposes, for setting our budget. Often when the budget does come through, there's usually an increased funding in foundation aid. Some years it's been $9,000, other years it's been $300,000. So there's no telling. We would not expect much this year, but again, ultimately, if we don't have that final budget, we have to work with what we've been given so far, which is what this budget is based on. Miscellaneous receipts and appropriated fund balance, just a couple other areas. Catherine?
So even though you're saying, and because I think it's important to clarify this, we operate in a tax cap environment. We operate. Good thing I wasn't close to the microphone. We operate in a tax cap environment, which does not keep pace with inflation. Foundation aid, although you are saying has been fully funded this year, I think it's important to clarify that that doesn't necessarily mean that that's making up the difference.
Correct.
So it's not making us whole. So that's the limitation of operating in a tax cap environment is that our revenues or the cost will always outpace our revenues because the foundation aid does not make up the difference in what it costs the districts to actually operate.
Exactly. Yes. It's a theoretical foundation aid.
So it's fully funded, which is amazing, but
but it's still
imagine
not.
If it wasn't, we'd be making bigger cuts.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, I think we touch on that in an upcoming slide again too. Here it is, the very one. So as we talked about, the graphic, and we've seen this graphic before, the straight line is 2%. The zigzag up and down is the CPI. So that, as we know, the tax cap is set either, it's not a 2% tax cap, it's 2% or the CPI, whichever is lower. So in the early years, the first 5 years there, it tended to be below the 2%. So we had lower cap, but at the same time, costs were lower. So they kind of aligned better. Since the pandemic, things have shot up. CPI has been way above it. Costs have been now outpacing revenue because we're only capped at that 2%, even though the increases in some years were as high as 6 and 8%. So we're limited at the 2% going into this year's budget because CPI is higher. The budget that we're presenting to the board tonight, once as constructed, will be a maximum allowable tax cap of 3.72%. And that's tax cap compliant, maximum allowable, and that's what we're going to be proposing to you tonight. Just as a reminder, if we're not exceeding the cap this year, if we were at any point, at 60% supermajority vote would be needed to pass a budget that is above the tax cap. Different than our villages and town, their boards can simply vote to pass it. We have to have a public vote of 60% or more. Other revenues, just to be aware of, as we're just talking state aid increase, this is the overall, Jim, correct, is this foundation aid? This is foundation aid. We get significantly more overall in state aid, but the foundation aid specific increase was $385,000. Yes. Most other districts, about 2/3 of the state only got a 1% increase. We got a just over 3.8% increase. So the net is 383, but again, when you're seeing costs increase at over $2 million, getting a foundation increase of 385, which is wonderful, and I'll take it, but to Catherine's point, it doesn't begin to close the difference.
Question on that, either for you or for Jim. What's the driver behind Pelham getting a greater increase in state aid versus other districts? What's interesting about us?
All I know is the other districts are now considered on safe harmless, meaning, if my understanding, simple version, the foundation aid, according to the foundation aid, they should actually be getting less, but instead of reducing them or keeping them flat, the state decided to at least give everybody 1% as a growth. So for districts like us, I don't know why we're not on safe and harmless and others are, but for us, when you calculate the foundation aid formula with our data, we're still getting the increases according to the formula. Jim?
It has a nice formula about it. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to sit in a 2-hour webinar, where this was part of it. I'll be happy to share that and spare you the 2 hours and give you the once we go through it, what those exact drivers were. But it's a long formula that takes into account student population, property values, and different things such as that.
And it could change, like next year.
Student wealth, or
we got it this year, but
Right.
we might not. It could change year to year based on what kind of data
yes,
Right.
we have. Right.
Yeah. And this is one of the reasons that we've been advocating for full funding of the foundation aid formula, because it's never enough for anyone. So we want at least the full amount, and also advocating to maintain the safe harmless provision, because at some point in time, we will wind up in that position, and we don't want to be losing funding. We need the stability and predictability of funding so that we can create balanced budgets and not and be able to supplement it and not have our taxpayers having to supplement that difference. So additionally, on the revenue side, there are some expected reductions in interest earnings, which we were talking about with the Finance Committee. And in constructing this budget, we again used debt service funds similar to prior years, but we did use slightly less. Our hope as we now head into the next implementation of bond projects, we want to be able to save some of that debt service to help mitigate those costs coming on. So we have met with CMA. They've given us I think a 10-year projection of how we might use that. So the thought here was to start with a little bit less, as Jim says, keep some powder dry for another year to help mitigate the tax increase as we see the onset of the new work. So in sum, as I said, we saw overall increases of our current actual budget. And I should say that when we roll over our budget, we start with what we're actually doing. We have a budget, we plan our budget, we stay on budget. But the reality of when we construct a budget in February, the board adopts a budget in April, the community passes it in May, and then we actually implement it, there's going to be variability. because sections change, enrollment changes, staffing changes, special education changes, all kinds of things change. So what we plan, we try to stick to, but we know that there has to be adjustments along the way. So when we go through the budgeting process, we start by rolling over what we're actually doing, so our actual program. If we added elementary sections because we had higher than expected enrollment, we go ahead and keep that and roll it over. If we expanded, I'm trying to think of other good examples, if we ran some extra classes at the high school that we hadn't planned for, extra E&L classes or extra special education services, we roll those over as our starting point. And then we add in all those increased costs anticipated. We put together what's our tax cap going to be? How much tax revenue can that raise? What's our anticipated state aid? What are we expecting on contributions for retirement system, for benefits? Put all that together. What's the gap? What's the delta between the two? And that's where we got now we again see a $2 million gap was our starting point. Current service budget rolled over, get all the projected revenues and expenditures, and now we have to get out the pencil and start sharpening it and figuring out how do we close this gap. So we began this budget development by trying to identify, knowing that we needed to identify about $2 million difference in reductions. So, and again, this is fluid. All that information on both the revenue side and expenditure side does come in over time. So you start in one place, but you're constantly adjusting, which is why we say it's kind of a living document and it's a fluid process. So even from today, as we start the budget process to where we're going to be in April, there are going to be adjustments. So we're going to keep you up to date on what those adjustments are. You'll see some ins and outs sheets before we ultimately set the budget in April. As we approach this work, finding $2 million is not easy. One would think in a large budget like ours it would be, but when it gets down to discretionary spending, you're dealing with a very limited amount of that budget. So knowing this and knowing that we made some significant reductions last year, we had that large class of retirees. Remember, we had 13 retirements. I think overall we reduced, I think it was about 8 overall net that we didn't replace, which was significant and incredibly helpful to where we are today, because that reduction in force actually helped to reduce what that gap would have been. That's what we got to the end of this process and thought, oh my God, I'm so glad we made those decisions last year, because we would have been facing an even more difficult time this year. So even with that was a good move last year. We're now at a position of still having to make some reductions as well to stay within the tax cap. And again, all districts are facing this. We've already, what did we count recently? We had at least a half a dozen to close, approaching 10 to 12 districts that have already pierced the cap in the past. Probably a half a dozen that we already know of that are piercing this year. We expect in the next month to hear of more that are going to be piercing the cap. It's something that's inevitable for all of us. We're trying to stave that off as long as possible, but the reality is we're getting really very, very tight to the bone as far as where we are with budget. So as we had to make these difficult decisions, we had to have some guiding principles. We've got our strategic plan. We've got our values. What are we going to do as we weed through these as we weed through these options? So staying within the cap, ensuring progress towards those plans. We literally started by listing what are our needs and what are our wants, because we have a lot of the needs we have to do. We don't have a choice. We have to have the same basic course of study for all students in the district to meet state standards, to meet graduation requirements. We have IEP and 504 requirements. We have some basics that we don't have any choices around. And then there's a lot of things, because of who we are and because of being a high achieving district and because of it being a community that values education and wants more than just the basics for our kids. We have a lot of incredible programs and supports, opportunities, enrichment that we've built for our students. Those technically are on the want side. So we had to really put everything on the table and then think about how do we approach this in a way that honors the guidance of the board, honors our strategic plan, honors our values, and minimizes the negative impacts. So we look strategically at those needs versus wants. Again, if there's an opportunity to reduce staffing through attrition, that's what we tried to do to the greatest degree possible, not fully possible, but where opportunities arise, that's where we did, because our people are our greatest value. So we don't want to have to reduce actual people. We try to use openings as opportunities to reduce costs. And of course, minimize impact on students. Stay as far away from students as we can. So when it came to closing the budget, these are the kind of the buckets, the categories that we had to look critically at and where the decisions ultimately landed. And as we go through the budget process, again, line by line, we will be going more deeply into these. But staffing reductions, some program tweaking, refining, streamlining. So things like retirements, that's exactly what I was talking about, not filling retirements. Some of the retirements, one will be filled, two will not. Looking at breakage is another term you'll hear us use, where we did have people retire throughout the year and we do need to replace those positions. Often we can replace them at a lower salary. So the difference between the retiree salary and the new salary is the breakage. So there's often savings whenever, even if we do replace, we still get some savings. So looking at that, looking at ways that we can streamline and use maybe fewer overages, use less hourly work. So there's areas that we're going to talk about over the coming meetings to reduce staffing and programs while still maintaining the core of those programs and reducing the impact on students that would be impacted by any potential reductions. That wasn't our first place to look. Our first place really was low-hanging fruit. What are the things that are farthest away from the classroom? And then what are areas that we can find more efficiencies? So I'm going a little bit out of order here, but to operational efficiencies, how do we tighten up our use? How do we make sure that we've got strong controls around operational things that are not part of the classroom, but that we can make sure we're using more in a more streamlined way? Consulting decreases. We've got consultation services all around the district, whether it's in facilities. We've got different consultants that do work on facilities that we can live with without for a year or two, because we just went through building conditions survey and feasibility work. We know the conditions of our roofing and our masonry, so we can live without that consulting for a little while. Even though communications is a priority, we've downsized on some of the consulting services there, some of the consulting services that I use for my own work. In the different areas around the cabinet, there's been reductions in some of those outside consulting contracts, again, so we can keep the resources in district. And in many times, we're going to be able to either postpone the work, as in the facilities case, or change our approach to the work to make sure that even though the consultant work is not happening, we're using more internal resources to accomplish the same goals. Refinement in software purchases and licenses. This is a big area, and I'll give kudos to him. Mr. Sabalos is here tonight. He and Dr. Comerford and Dr. Short did a real deep dive into our software uses. During the pandemic, we added a ton of software, instructional softwares, because you needed to. That was our bread and butter to get us through those years. But took the time to thoughtfully and strategically look at that and come up with some pretty major reductions, that cost savings, was still preserving the tools that teachers and students need to do their work. And then, of course, throughout the process, we continue to get updated revenue numbers as well. So that has helped us where we thought maybe the revenue was going to be lower. You're going to see as we go through the detail, we actually got more in. And I'll give you one example is homeless aid. That's something we never included in the budget. Now we're going to including that aid that we get back, because we do now consistently have a small group of homeless students. Making sure that we're capturing back all of the taxes from the border properties, the New York City border properties, those kinds of things. So we built those in to try to make sure that we're maximizing all the revenues and capturing everything clearly. So those are the buckets that we use to get to that $2 million so that we can present you with a balanced budget. So the budget that we're going to be proposing to the board is a total appropriations $99 million. We didn't go to another digit. $99,092,000 budget. The budget-to-budget increase is $2.8 million, and you can follow that trail right back to those increasing costs that we talked about earlier in the presentation. It's a year-to-year budget increase of 2.91%. As I said earlier, the allowable tax levy increase within the tax cap is 3.72, and that's what we're presenting to you tonight. The components of that, just so you know, 2.28% is the operating budget increases. So we like to show that because I really want you to see the consistency here. We really are working hard to keep the operating costs down to the greatest degree possible, but to maintain program and maintain staffing to the greatest degree possible, but keep it in that reasonable capped amount. And in this budget, the capital expenditures, which are exclusions to the cap, represent about 1.44% of that increase as well. If you put the two together, and that's where you get the whole allowable cap. I think that's it. And then we've got our lineup of budget meetings for us here, and the various milestone points that we have to meet, and of course some public engagement, board coffees, et cetera. And ultimately, May 19th is our target date that we're looking for. So I'm going to stop there. See if there's any questions.
I don't have any questions.
No questions on the budget. Can we go back to just the date calendar? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so we're gonna be here
checking
almost
the
every
calendar
week
to
for the
make
next.
sure we're here.
So yeah, we are here next week, the week after,
Yeah.
and the week after that, and the week after. So all through March, we're here with something. Actually, the 11th is a board coffee. It's not a board meeting. And we do have a board coffee tomorrow morning at Prospect Hill at 8:15. I forgot to mention that earlier. So if anyone wants to come, whether you want to talk about snow, calendar, budget, whatever's on your mind, folks can come. We'll be there. It's a drop-in. People don't have to be there right at 8:15. We're trying to make that accessible to schools. The coffee and the snacks might be a little late because food service doesn't get here till 8:30, but we'll be there, and the coffee will arrive.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. And I will be going around to all the PTAs as usual, all the community organizations, so look forward to engaging with the public that way as well.
It's less of a question and maybe more of like a comment, I guess. I know we're at the very beginning stages of this, so thank you for, the early visibility. Thinking about the communications and the feedback of folks informed and just, like really leaning into things. Just more of a planting of the seed of, are there things that we'll want to do differently to ensure there's, I don't know, other ways or different levels so folks in the community feel as informed as possible? I mean, look at that nice long list. I know, we really lead in. So it's just, it's less of a question to be answered now, but just something, it seems like we're really geared up to just continuously improve and think about what community members need to be informed, as they vote. But I know we already are doing, so much to give those opportunities, as you can see.
Yeah, and we've been thinking about that all along. And if I forget something, Alex, feel free to jump in on this. Part of doing the mid-year, we've been trying to build a consistency to the message so that there's through lines that people can see whether they tune in, a month ago, this month, next month. Trying to build some consistency to that message and the story of the district. Trying to build some more understanding here. I know we have plans to do a budget, a focus. Not a budget focus yet, but a winter focus mailing to all homes in the community. That seems to be one of our most effective strategies, as well as a budget focus. So those are both going to be two things. We normally do those, but we're making sure that those, again, are very aligned and focused on that consistency of story. And we're going to be looking back to the strategic plan to see what additional elements, and looking back to the board goals on that we had talked about for trying to strengthen the understanding. I thought it was interesting in working with Jessica when she told us, when she saw the results about awareness of finance, facilities, and even like leadership decision making. Those we looked, we're like, oof. And she said, no, those are typically areas that most people, unless they're really tuned in, like board members or some of your most active PTA folks, people just, they're not tuned into a lot of that. So I think that's the hard part, is how do we catch those folks?
That's what, yeah.
That's exactly it. Alex,
And
yeah,
I-
please, I'm sure you can do a better job than I just did answering that.
Certainly not a better job, but just a couple other pieces. As the board probably remembers, back in the fall, we did our initial focus newsletter. Included in that, we did a timeline of what the budget process looks like, and that was intentional to start orienting people around what the process looks like. So we didn't have figures and data and charts and stuff at that point, but we did know the process was coming. So starting to orient around that. And then we are continually thinking about what are some different ways where we can communicate the budget information, and we know that that's been a priority that's reflected in the board goals for the year. So we have started thinking about that. A couple, I don't even remember the date at this point, shortly before break, we had a regional meeting of all the Hudson Valley School PR people get together a couple of times a year, and it's an opportunity to sort of talk through what are you guys doing? What's your budget look like? What are you thinking about? And those are always really, really good because I have like 3 or 4 ideas of what other districts are doing. And similarly, like I brought up to them, hey, you know, we go to our community organizations and we present the budget. You do? Like, yes, we do. So, you know, we're always sharing that information. So we definitely are thinking about that and trying to be responsive to that as well.
Yeah, and the budget is also something that ends up going, being discussed on the community pages on Facebook. So just for us to sort of have a plan around, making sure the most accurate information is provided if necessary.
Yeah, and for sure. And I do have to apologize. This is what you get on a snow day when I've been up since 4:30. So I apologize if my eloquence is not there. My exhaustion is showing tonight. Kind of to that point, one of the things that we think about when we reflect on even like our traditional budget presentations, we've got a very sophisticated community, a lot of finance folks. So we tend to get very in the weeds. Not everyone's got the time, energy for that. They really maybe need more of that high level. Give me the talking points, the key talking points in it. So as we revise that and prepare for the next presentations that are to come, we're going to be thinking about that. And my thought in that is if we can keep those high level key messages in the forefront, that's going to help with exactly that. Mm-hmm. How do we get the most critical points that people need to simply understand out there in a way that they can be digested, whether it's social media, through email, passing on parent square notices, things like that. So we're going to try to keep that lens, still keep the meat there that we know that there's folks in the community that want and need, but also try to make it digestible for people in a modern world.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, and Catherine, you had mentioned this earlier, just the connection of the bond, the bond work and the budget for the bond to the overall budget, that'll need to be made explicitly clear, like, where the debt service is headed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when we get
respect to
into the construct of the tax cap and the expenditures, that's where you're going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jim's time to shine.
That's right.
Yeah, it's your year. It's just.
That's right. May 19th. I forget. That's Val's Super Bowl is the May 19th. Jim's Super Bowl is everything up to that.
It's a full time at your time.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim and Alex, on that presentation.
Okay. Next, we have Board of Education Committee reports. So
The Advocacy and Engagement Committee can do a quick update, which is actually super timely considering we just heard and talked about the budget. Do you want me to just really quick? So the Advocacy and Community Engagement, I think at the last board meeting, we talked about the fact that we were getting a voter voice letter ready to send out to the community and voter voice, for those of you who need the context around that, are those letters that you see at this time of year that is issue focused, and send it to your representative, send it to your congressional person, and let them know that this is an issue you care about. So Pelham has written a letter and has put it, our community members should have seen that right before we went on break, and our letter is focused on foundation aid. And as we just saw from the budget, foundation aid is extremely important, and so we really encourage everyone in the community who has the time to please copy and paste that letter into your email and send it off, because our representatives need to know how important this updating the foundation aid formula is to all districts, because we are operating in a tax cap environment, and that has made all school districts overly reliant on foundation aid. That is the only way, or the biggest, not the only way. There's a few buckets of aid, as Jim will explain to all of us further on, but foundation aid is the biggest funding that we get. And our letter really, supports making sure that that formula is updated. So that is just the update from our committee.
Oh,
And they can find that letter in their email?
In their email, and Alex, I think, will send it around again, because we have a few weeks to, these letters can be sent all year. I mean, that we're going to be talking about updating the foundation aid formula for the next few
Forever.
years. Yeah.
And for those community members that were watching their Facebook during the snowstorm, I also put it out.
You did, yes.
So everybody could just take that 5 minute while they were home.
Thank you.
And send
Thank
that
you,
letter
Natalie.
around, because it is, as Catherine said, it is important to get our voice heard, and this is an easy way for us to get that done.
Yep. And you do get, I know from Amy Paul, and you do get a response.
Yes, you do.
That was actually really appreciated.
So we had a few bites on Facebook.
Good. All
Some
right.
people were,
Yes, it's sent.
willing to send out our letter while they were stuck at home.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
We had finance audit, so Will, we just,
I think we've covered the
The budget.
financial piece of it.
yeah,
I thought we covered audit last 2 weeks ago.
did we?
I think so.
Okay,
Jim saying yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about,
Did we report on it at
Was
the
it on
last
Wednesday
meeting?
or Thursday?
right, I don't think we talked
Maybe
about
the
it at the
day
board
after our
meeting.
last meeting.
Yeah. Okay,
I can
maybe,
report on it. I've
yeah,
got it.
yeah,
Okay, we'll let Jim
Jim
do
will
it.
update us.
It's on my list.
Okay. I think that was, yeah, and we talked about bond steering, and
Right.
and
Yep.
Jim will talk about that more.
Yes.
Okay. Next, we can move to Assistant Superintendent's update on personal growth and achievement.
I've asked them to be very brief tonight,
Thank you.
the late hour.
I will be brief, or I'll talk fast. I just want to highlight a couple of things that have happened that demonstrate our commitment to authentic learning for both faculty and students. I thought I spoke about the tri-state visit. I feel like I've spoken about it a lot, but I did want to just mention that we did have our visit at the end of January. 22 educators from across New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut came and did a deep dive into our multi-tiered system of support for students, which is a large part of our strategic plan. Over the 3 days, the teams engaged with administrators, faculty, staff, parents, students, trustees. Thank you to Sid and Dara for meeting with the team, and to learn more about how MTSS lives and breathes across our school. It was a wonderful experience for all of us. The team was impressed with Pelham, but also engaged with us in collaborative discussions and artifact analysis, and they were able to highlight strengths of our system and also intentional work underway to help refine parts of our system. One other thing I want to mention is that our very own Dr. Tricia Fitzgerald was invited to present at the Lower Hudson Regional BOCES Curriculum and Leadership Council this month. This honor reflects both her leadership and the innovative work happening right here in Pelham. The focus of the regional work session was on helping leaders in our region and beyond transition from the old annual professional performance review, APPR, teacher evaluation system, to the new STEPS, not an acronym, more of an acrostic, standing for Standard Teaching Evidence, Performance, and Student Learning, for teacher evaluations. What we learn and see and know is that Pelham is ahead of the region, beginning in this work. We're starting early, and by proactively engaging in this transition process, we're ensuring that our next evaluation system is built collaboratively and designed to be transparent, supportive, and actionable. And starting early allows us to thoughtfully align our practices with state guidance while centering our professional growth and meaningful feedback for leaders across the district. And then finally, Emerson did mention, and I'll just highlight it again, that on February 12th, we had our Humanities Showcase in the high school library. So students in classes in English and Social Studies presented their in-depth research projects to peers, families, faculty, and community members, demonstrating strong critical thinking, research, and communication skills through authentic public presentations. It highlighted the talent of our students, the dedication of our teachers, and our commitments to rigorous, engaging learning experiences. Just a quick thanks to Dr. Short and the rest of the English and Social Studies departments for, this is our second year of doing that, and it enables our humanities research students to really showcase their work and talents.
So I brought my kids to, I missed it this year, but I went the last year, and they loved it, and
Yeah.
asked the kids so many questions. We're really engaged, and our students knew so much about, I mean, of course, it's a research topic, but I mean, my kids were asking some hard questions,
Yeah.
and they were able to fully answer and engage my, like, at the 9 and 6-year-old with their fascinating subjects.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool event, and it's nice that it's open to the whole community and not just parents.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight the Tri-States, that sort of assessment and working with the team on MTSS. I was able to learn a lot about this work, and that we really pursue this in the pursuit of growth and development. And
Yeah.
so it was really a great experience, and really wonderful to be able to look a little bit under the hood, do you know, like around the questions you all were asking, and really how you're, you know, what you want to find out to provide the best environment and the best learning environment that we can. So, you know,
Thank you.
great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Assistant Superintendent's update on belonging and wellness.
Okay, so we started annual review season as we return from February break. So it's a busy time of year for us between CPSC, CSC, and 504. When all is said and done, we'll be scheduling close to 700 meetings. So parents will be starting to get their invites. We usually give about a 4-week lead time so that everyone can plan accordingly. We do our best to accommodate, but there's a lot of logistics that go into planning and making sure we have staffing available. So busy, busy time. Also, in terms of MTSS, as you all know, this year started our work around the SEL portion of building out our MTSS plan. Our committees are meeting monthly. We've identified a pilot Tier 1 program that we are looking into, and the next second half of the year, the focus of the committee will be really building on the tiers of support and the plan and the data that we will be looking at to tier students. Just also quickly too, on February 5th, we had our second annual presentation for high school parents and students. That was specifically about navigating disabilities in higher education. So if you have a CSC, an IEP, or a 504, what does the transition to college look like for you, and how do you access services? So we were able to have back with us the Disabilities Office Director from Manhattanville University, and also this year we added in Fordham University. So that was a great event for parents and students alike to find out what that's like. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Next, we have Executive Director's update on human resources and leadership.
Thank you, everyone. Just a quick update on the Siwani principal search. So the snow put a little monkey wrench in our timeline, but we're back up and running. So we've rescheduled the committee interviews for tomorrow night. They were supposed to be last night. We had 57 candidates overall apply. We screened about 20 of them using the Siwani leadership profile as a determination of who we would screen or not. So we're really excited about the 6 candidates we're bringing forward to the committee interviews. We will then take the feedback from the committees tomorrow night and bring back 3 to 4 of those finalists next Tuesday to run professional learning sessions for teachers. We will then bring the finalists back to read a story to children, and then cabinet interviews and board of ed interviews. So we are looking to wrap this up in March, pending snow, but I'm thinking we might have hit our limit. I've hit my limit anyway. So more to come on that, but we've got the ball rolling, and I'm really thankful to the committee members for their flexibility this week, but 2, for their time and their participation in this. And the second thing I just want to bring everyone's attention to is we have student teachers, student observers, and interns with us again for their spring semester. When I ran and compared the numbers, we have 28 again this year. In the spring, we had 28 this fall. So our numbers are still holding steady. They are K-12, they're across all disciplines, and they're really from a variety of colleges and universities. So when I first started, it was specifically really just Iona University that the bulk of our students were coming from, and now they're coming from all over. We are still getting calls and emails from college and universities who are looking to fill placements. If we can do that, we definitely will take them on. If we can't, I do recommend that they email me again later in the spring to set things up for the fall. So that program is still up and running and live and well, but it really could not run without the help of our teachers and our administrators and our service providers who are opening their doors and welcoming our students in so that they can learn and grow our profession as well. So I'm really thankful to everyone involved. And that's it for me tonight.
Thank you. That's excellent. We have so many students rotating through. Yep. Okay. Next, we have Assistant Superintendent's update on facilities and sustainable learning environments.
Hi, good evening. We'll try to be as brief as I can. If we do have some items that
Yes.
may take a little bit longer. First, I want to again just touch on what others have touched on, and thank our facilities team for their great work the last few weeks. Certainly yesterday and today and the day before were difficult, but let's not forget the few days leading into the vacation too. We had an incredible cold snap, and after a few weeks, it really takes its toll on our equipment. As you know, we had some difficulty at Prospect. We were able to keep the building up and running. Over the break, we were able to get that unit back in service, which is really great. So we've got 2 functioning boilers at Prospect Hill. So we're happy to report that. And again, we're going to need it for at least one more heating season, despite that work. So great work on their part. So again, the facilities folks and the director of facilities, John Condon, I think really did a terrific job, and it's important that we acknowledge that. Going back to the break, just before the break, we had a power problem at Siwanoy, and I think that was something that really was kind of a culmination of a lot of work and effort throughout the district on safety preparedness and planning. Building capacity throughout the district with our safety team and with our safety consultant and everybody in the buildings. And again, with that, I want to take the opportunity to thank all the building staff, our safety staff, and then when the students moved over to the high school, just the great work with our village partners. Village Police immediately worked to provide a clear pathway for our students. Village of Pelham Public Safety, they stopped traffic on Colonial, and it was great. The kids, it was a parade for them, and they walked into the building like heroes. They got their first day of high school without even knowing. But again, it was done very well. The reunification process, I thought, worked very well. This was something that our building emergency response teams were aware of and had practice with some of the equipment and the procedures, so that was helpful. The people at the high school and middle school jumped into action really well and helped that effort move along quickly. And the parents were terrific, and Alex and the communications worked really well. And I don't want to give ourselves too much credit because, you know, you just want to take it to far enough that you're recognizing people did a great job. We did our debrief, and again, it's part of just working on our processes and building that capacity. And we thought things went well. That doesn't mean we didn't think of how we could do other things differently or better. So all in all, though, the folks did a great job, and the kids were fantastic too. So we're very, very fortunate. All right, so that's B. We had a couple of committee meetings prior to the break as well. Our finance committee met. We talked about the district's long-range plan, the initial budget. Received some of the feedback from the committee on the budget, on the efforts that we took to develop the budget. Much of what was spoken about was discussed today by Dr. Champ. Talked about our end-of-year forecast and how we're going to update that as the year goes on. And throughout the budget process, we'll continue to meet with the finance committee, take that feedback, and again, work our ways through the budget process. And again, this is a budget process. Our audit committee met, talked about our uniform guidance for our Fed funds audit, which was delayed this year due to some federal releasing of some information. So that information was reviewed. Again, it was a clean audit. Met with our internal auditor. We're going to be talking about some of our internal audit projects for this year, which will deal with our cafeteria fund and our cash collection efforts, mainly related to trips and things like that. So our processes, and make sure we're comfortable with those processes. And then we had a bond steering committee meeting. It was largely just informative, not a lot of new information. I think it was helpful, though. It was kind of a straw poll on how people felt about hybrid construction. We've talked about it modular, but it's really not completely modular. It is more of a hybrid type of effort, because there will still be construction effort on site. There's going to be a foundation. Even if we go to hybrid, the superstructure will come in, but then that structure is going to have to be encapsulated on site with brick facing, so it's going to look like it was built on site. Going to need a roof and all that type of finishing work. And some portions of those areas will also have to be stick-built. All in all, though, it does still look promising. The committee responded favorably to it. We want to continue looking in that effort. And we've engaged a vendor to kind of look at the routes to take and to kind of really give us an understanding, a written understanding, that this is an entirely feasible project where we can get this equipment and these units in place if we were to decide to do that. So it's pretty exciting when we talk about that. Let's see, I talked about facilities. Talked about safety. We have our budget, again, beginning of a long process. We've got about 5 meetings before, at least 5 meetings, public meetings, before the board approves the final budget to put before the community on April 21st. As we go through this, information is going to change. We always know that. It changes every year as we do that. We keep the board informed. We keep the community informed. And I think communication-wise, I think it was interesting what Dr. Champ said and what Alex said too, because we can really go down to the granular level with our line-by-line budget review. It's part of the culture in the community as long as I've been here. So we're still planning on doing all of those things, and then at the same time, it's the regular roadshow, going out and talking to people, explaining the budget, and when there are questions, being able to answer those questions. So we're looking to do that. As I say, it's deja vu all over again, like the late great Yogi Berra said, and I think I said that last year too. So it's deja vu all over again. With that, big thank you to the business office. It's a huge team effort. Jackie Vihler, our treasurer, Kathy Blank, our department secretary, everybody in that effort. We're very fortunate. Folks know what to do. They just go ahead and do it. So we're very fortunate. On tonight's agenda, we've just got a lot of business items, obviously, with our treasury report. We have our long-range plan, which we talked about the finance committee. We've got a fairly routine transfer related to some security and legal expenses. We've got the uniform guidance that we talked about. There is an agreement for an engagement with KG&D Architects. You're going to say, what, don't we already have them as our architects? Yes, we do for our bond project. This is separate and distinct. If you remember a few meetings ago, we were awarded a grant from the state for cameras. In order to do that, we're installing these in our buildings. You need a building permit from the state. You have to have architectural plans. You have to go through the process. So as part of that entire application process, this cost will be covered by the grant. It will be covered by the grant. It's a reimbursement grant, but this is all part of the budget that we provided to the state. And then these are fees that will be reimbursed later on. The good thing is they know our buildings, so they know how to work with the state. So we're expecting these things to be a little bit more seamless than if we were to engage a new architect for this work.
Jim, sorry, is it just for all of our district buildings or just for the secondary campus?
District-wide,
Okay.
all buildings. So it's quite a comprehensive. It was a very generous grant, quite honestly, and it's really going to do a great job of lighting up the district with camera and access controls. So really, really great grant from Senator Biaggi. Tonight we have 2 secret resolutions. One may look familiar. It's just an amendment to deal with a batting cage that we're doing at Glover Complex. On the original document, it said Glover Field. It's really not necessarily at Glover Field. It's at the Glover Complex at Friendship Field. The state really hasn't raised an issue, but we just want to make sure it's very clear. So that's the amendment on that particular SECRO ordinance or resolution. The other one's related to Prospect Hill Outdoor Classroom. Again, very generous, made possible with very generous donations of the Prospect Hill community, as well as a grant through Assemblywoman Paulin's office of $150,000. So we're working with their architect on the submission of those plans as well to the state. And the architect working on that project has communicated with their architect at KG&D. There's a lot of sharing of information, sharing of effort. So we want to make everybody aware of who's working at which areas, so there's not a lot of double work or people working over area that's already been worked on. So it's really been great. Everybody's doing a great job. We've got an agreement for our purchasing agreement related to our purchasing of technology. This really is something that we do every year, and this is just in preparation to have in place when we have a successful budget. And this paperwork doesn't go in until there is a successful, we know there is a successful budget. Work with the director of technology of that. And then last two items, two very generous donations. One for the Amy Geisinger Scholarship Fund, a former student of graduate of Pelham Memorial High School. And then PTA donations related to lunchtime enrichment. We normally have a blanket. We have a blanket resolution. It did not include lunch resolution or lunch enrichment, so we want to make sure we're staying compliant and have the proper authority to receive those monies. I think that's what I've got.
That's everything, yeah. Okay.
Oh, one last thing, I apologize. We were talking about the budget, the state aid.
Yeah, I misspoke.
And the figure that we have up there is the net cost of $385,000. Our foundation aid, it was actually up about $562,000. And then some of our transportation aid went down, and some of our building aid went down, which we knew about. But again, want to make sure that was corrected, and that detail's all in our budget book. Budget books are going to be distributed to board members. We can leave them with you tonight, or send them to your house. And we'll have it up online at the district and available for viewing at the business office and at the district office as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for your everyone's updates. Do I have a motion to take 6.1 through 6.10 as a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there any comments or questions on this? The first item Dr. Champ spoke about, it's the approval of the revised calendar due to the snow days.
Yep, and that's current year.
Yeah, the current year calendar due to the snow days. The second one is a trip to Spain
Yes.
in 2027.
Yes, very excited about that. And the teacher wanted me just to raise the point to the board of on the itinerary. They're currently scheduled to go to, I want to say, just concerned about the
dates?
No, not dates, locations. I'm sorry, I want to say Monaco, but I'm not sure. I don't.
Malaga.
Think
I think it was Malaga.
Morocco. They're crossing over.
Someplace beginning with an M.
It definitely begins with an M. It's escaped.
I'm pretty sure it was Malaga, because I was looking at the sheet. I thought it was Malaga.
It could be.
They're going to someone wonderful in Spain.
Yes, and there was just a concern about one location that I think crossed over into, I'm sorry, it's asleep. I looked it up. The concern was about one of the locations, just because it potentially could be, for student safety. just
I
on the
see.
traveling safety. But we looked up the safety levels. It was at the same level of Spain, as all of Spain, as Paris, as most of Europe, as far as looking at the security levels.
From the State Department?
From the State
Yeah,
Department,
yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
often, if something was at a higher level of alert,
Mhm.
we would reconsider whether to send trips.
Okay.
So,
And this is a region within Spain.
yes.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Was it brought up by family or somebody?
No, it
No,
was
the-
one of
the
the, Mrs. Calvelli.
Oh, so
One of the
here's where
teachers.
they're going.
Thank you.
Madrid, Toledo, Cordoba, Seville, Granada, Costa del Sol. It's probably Costa del
There's lots
Sol.
of drunk British tourists there.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is.
But it's February,
That
so there
must have
shouldn't
been
be
it.
as many.
Okay.
So obviously, it was a school trip, so it'll be supervised appropriately.
Yeah.
But she just wanted to make sure the board was comfortable with that.
This was my school trip. I did this exact trip.
Did
It
you?
sounds
Oh,
like
wow.
an amazing trip.
So, great. And she'll be happy to know if she was willing to make an adjustment if anyone was uncomfortable with that. But
I would just follow the state guide, or the
Yeah.
Yeah.
State Department
Yeah.
guidelines.
Yep.
So.
They have a great time.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds excellent. Okay, and Jim
Yeah.
mentioned everything else on this.
Yeah.
On this list. So does anyone have any comments or questions?
No, just happy some of these things are moving along, like the cameras. I know we've been waiting
Yeah.
a long time for them, but
Yeah.
things move slow, so we understand.
Yeah.
And glad for the Prospect Hill outdoor classroom, which if they're doing it in conjunction with some of the work that's gonna start there this summer, should be greatly done to have, yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so all of that, all of those motions are approved. 6.11, do I have hold on, do I motion to accept a donation?
So move.
Second.
Okay, Jim mentioned this donation, but I'll read it. Resolve that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education of the Pelham Union Free School District does hereby accept the monetary donation of $20,000 to the Amy Geisinger Scholarship Fund, and that gratitude be bestowed upon its donor, Frederick W. Geisinger Charitable Foundation. So thank you to the foundation for the scholarship money. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so thanks again for that donation. And then do I have a motion to approve a donation? This one is for the funds from the PTAs.
So moved.
Second.
And it's from the PTAs to cover, I forgot what you said, Jim. It was from the.
Lunchtime enrichment.
Oh, this is for lunchtime enrichment. Okay. Okay. Thank you to the PTAs for their support of lunchtime enrichment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's approved, so thanks again. Then, let's see, do I have a motion? Oh, okay, so these are, now we move to policy.
Yeah, we've got one first reading and the rest are all up for
On the
adoption.
last
Yes.
reading.
Yes, so, yes,
Yes,
please.
since it is
Yeah,
on
I don't-
screen, Sid, we'll take it from here. And it's just kind of simple tonight. We had been working, as the board knows, through updating our special education policies. So we just wanted to add a new one to the list for first reading, and that's children with disabilities. And this one, the goal of this was predominantly to update this in alignment with the new regulations. Students are entitled to an education up until their 22nd birthday. So it's to make the appropriate adjustments there. I think that was pretty straightforward. We worked with Suzanne, our legal counsel, on that, and she updated that as appropriate. Committee was good with it.
What are all there was a lot that looks, so these red lines make it really hard to sort of like read through. But so this was a policy that hadn't been updated since, what, 2012?
Yes.
So I know that something big that changed was now FAPE is required up to the 22nd
Right.
birthday. Although the state's not giving school districts money for that, but that's not in this policy. It's not relevant for the policy. But then there's all these other changes in there about how services are provided.
I think these are predominantly, and Tracy, I think
There's a
will
lot of
correct
things
me
like
if I'm wrong.
removed, it looks
A
like.
lot of it was just, I think, moved around.
Language though, because
Yeah.
they were talking a lot about UDL, which isn't necessarily the thing. We talk more about
you-
specially designed instruction than UDL.
Can you
but
define that for people who don't know what UDL is?
Universal design for learning.
Thank you.
Versus specially designed instruction, which is more the updated way we think about how we approach curriculum. And then I don't have it open in front of me. Here, thanks.
There was some cleanup language through the district of location, district of residence, those kinds of things.
Yeah, child fine, and then, but that was for parentally placed students.
Right, so
But
really,
then before that, though, there's
Yeah, so we struck the UDL, which is old language, right? And then, and this again is language that talked about UDL, so that's why that was struck in number 1. And then, it's just more updated in line with what Erie 1 tells us that we have to put in. I mean, you could always put more if you want to, but we use Erie 1 sort of as the benchmark
Right.
for like what is necessary and what must be. And then the whole second half of it is about students parentally placed in non-public schools that are within the bounds of Pelham, which we don't have any.
Right. Right. So I think we updated it kind of as a, if we ever did have it.
Right.
But we're able to keep it pretty simple.
Right, this now and again is another UDL one, so it was kind of like outdated language.
Okay.
Okay. So again, that's up for first reading, so we'll carry that one over. The others are up for third reading. We have not received any additional feedback.
Okay.
I don't think we made any changes on these at committee either.
I looked at those again before I closed my computer.
Yep.
Those are really just to, again, be in line with Erie 1 language. A lot of our policy is inclusive in Erie 1. They just formatted it in a little
Right.
bit of a different way, and
Yeah.
it reads
Yeah.
better.
And it's basically reiterating of regulation.
Right, and another one again to like 7.4, 7617, we had to update the age 22 in that one again, so it's substantively the same, just updated with Erie 1 language.
Yep.
Yep.
So we would recommend, the committee would recommend these for adoption.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, for the third reading?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, all right, especially since we haven't gotten any other comments. Yep. Okay, so, do I have a motion to take 7.2 through 7.7, which are those policies that are, at their third reading, as a consent agenda and to approve these policies?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so those are on the list
Thank you.
of approved policies. Thank you.
What, 7.1, we just
Oh,
gonna move it?
7.1 was just the first reading.
Yep.
So we
So we're
don't.
moving it forward.
Yeah, we don't do anything with that one. Okay. Do I have a motion to take 8.1?
Go through 9.1.
Yeah, through 9.1 as a consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Yep, just quick highlights here, of course, Miss Sabia.
Yeah, I wish
again.
Mrs. Sabia the best.
I
I will
know,
miss
you
her
can't
terribly.
always vote that one down. But, yes, Miss Sabia, several FMLA leaves, appointments of substitute teachers, for coverage. On the instructional side, again, the student teachers that we talked about earlier, leave replacements, interns. And then on the non-instructional, we're happy to have Diane Nasta coming back to the district as a clerical. She used, long time ago, way pre-pandemic, she used to actually work in the HR office for a little while. So she's coming back to replace Karen Mann as the attendance secretary at the high school. So Diane's
Great.
lovely, welcoming, very warm. I think she's going to do a great job.
Yep, we know who to send our
Notices
our
to.
emails
That's right.
to now. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are all approved. Do we have new business?
You
do,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna.
Yeah, no, I'll give a quick one and then I'll just turn it over to you, but just a quick update. I accompanied Catherine to Advocacy Day up in Albany, so it was, for me, the first time there as a member of the Board of Education, so it was really, I just wanted to give a quick update, and Catherine, jump in if I missed anything. But we went to 4 offices, and then we dropped by information at 4 others, had a really incredible opportunity to also meet other members of Board of Educations in the community in New York State, really were able to hear about, just also kind of what they're focused on and, from a national level, education. So it was really a great opportunity. We did speak about UPK, Universal Pre-K. We spoke about foundation aid. We spoke about charter schools, BOCES, and special education funding. So we were able to really talk through some of those topics. I think for me, it was knowing that we have a presence and a voice. I think, Natalie, you talked about a voice. And so Catherine is really up in Albany doing lots of other things. So having the benefit of a board member that has relationships, that is able to really kind of be able to connect the dots in different areas was really great to watch and to see. And I'm really proud that we were able to be in Albany kind of talking about what matters most to us and listening too around, what are some of the issues for the state, that we should be aware of and that they're grappling with as well. So I don't know, jump in if I missed anything.
No,
but,
that was great. Thank you. I'm so glad you got the opportunity to come with me this year. I hope you had fun.
It was lots of fun. My favorite
It's a
thing
super
was
fun
the
time.
car ride.
Albany is
Maybe
just
next year we can
blast.
I can fit 7 people in my car, so I can take all of you.
Then
Maybe next year.
Then it would be a quorum.
That's right, you'd have a quorum. to
Oh,
do
yeah,
that.
true. We couldn't do it. We couldn't do that. But I think the important thing about going up there is not only are we able to meet in person, we have the benefit of seeing all of our local representatives, like electeds, so frequently here in Pelham. But it does make it's a little different when you can meet when you meet them sort of on their home turf, either in their regional offices or in Albany. We didn't see our electeds this year because Dr. Champ and I met with them the next day, actually, over
Remotely.
Zoom.
Yep.
So the benefit of going up there in person is actually seeing electeds from around the state and being able to get in front of them and talk to them and join other groups and talk with other people. And there was a larger contingent of people who were not able to make it this year due to illness and having trouble traveling, specifically our BOCES colleagues from Southern Westchester BOCES. So the thing that was important for us to do is carry their messages with us. So we got to meet with a few representatives from different districts and really speak to messages that support education overall, specifically the BOCES and the special act school districts, because they're so small and our special act colleagues weren't able to make it. None of them were able to make it. So being able to speak about the issues that really matter to them was an important opportunity, and that helps support also, special act school districts, they take the hardest kids from all over the state on a moment's notice. So their work benefits Pelham. Their work benefits education overall. BOCES, we couldn't do half of the things that we could do without in Pelham without BOCES. So the fact that we were able to speak for them when they weren't able to, it was important opportunity for us to have as well. Teamwork.
Thank you for representing.
Yeah, thank you for going.
Thank you both for you, because I know it was a long day.
It was
And you
Not
guys
as
came
long
back.
as the day getting back from LA over the last couple of days.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one thing. Check your email. I sent over from Teresa Mohan, who is our new town supervisor. She is, the town is putting together a sustainability advisory board, and they're asking for a representative from each of the boards, like one of the village, each of the village boards and the Board of Education. It's not like a, there's no.
Decision-making.
It's not a decision-making board. It's more informational and sharing best practices, that type of thing. Sid had already emailed back and said that he'd be happy to do it, but if anybody else is interested, please, let me know so I can let Teresa know.
Yeah, if timing will, I'll take, you said it's quarterly.
It's a quarterly meeting, yeah.
So I can check with Sid around scheduling, but yeah, I'd be interested in that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm the yes person these days.
Nice. Budget season.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Seize the
Pretty
day.
busy. See how long that lasts.
Okay. we don't have communications and comments from the public, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jen.
Thank you all.